And we are live. Welcome to the book club. Yay. My name is Natalie. This is my channel, My So-Called Gen X Life. And tonight we are in week 3 of my so-called book club for the 4th turning. Joining me as always is Grendelson, one of my subscribers and channel members. How's it going, Grendelson?
What up, everybody? Happy Tuesday, May 19th. Shout out to my dad, would have been 79 years old yesterday if he hadn't died when he was 40. And I'm going to see Star Wars on Friday, so I'm going to wear my Grogu t-shirt.
Nice. Yeah. Fantastic.
Cannot wait. Going to first show I can go to. Taking my mom and my kid. And I still love the movie theater experience so much. And especially if it's Star Wars. I have yet to miss a Star Wars in the theater, so I gotta go.
All right. Well, good. That sounds like a good plan for the week. Enjoy your theater experience. We don't have theater anymore where I live. They shut it down about 6 months ago, so we don't have a movie theater anymore.
You don't have any movie theaters nearby?
No, the closest one is about 45 minutes away.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Even in Cedar City, they had theaters.
Huh?
Cedar City, Utah, they had theaters there.
Yep.
And Orem, they had theaters there.
Yeah. Those are much bigger towns. I mean, my town only has about 10,000 people in it.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. 2 stop signs.
There's 4 now. Come on. We're doing big things.
Oh, sorry. 4. My bad. 4. That's great. You know, there's 4 stoplights between here and La Brea.
Well, you know, different lives, the lives of the rural and the urban American. All right, guys. Let's see. Hello, Dale's in the chat. Rachel's here. Cindy is here. Sherry lives. Calcular K. Matthew Baduria. Awesome. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. We are diving into the 4th turning, chapters 2 and 3, Seasons of Time and Seasons of Life, I believe is the other one. Yeah, Seasons of Time and Seasons of Life. Say that again.
No Seasons of Love.
No Seasons of Love. That's correct. But this is very, very history heavy, these 2 chapters. These were written for those that really hadn't read Generations, which is the book that we just read. So it's definitely an overview of history going back centuries upon centuries, millennia, really. Just to give their theories some street cred. They're going to tell you where their theories came from and, just give you some backstory. So there's a lot of history in this chapter. We're not going to dive really deep into that. We're just kind of gloss over it and hit the big points that they're trying to make in these chapters, which to me, the big point they're trying to make is the number 4 is a big deal in their theories. 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. So,
you can tell they weren't Japanese. They were not afraid of the number 4.
No, they were not. AV2B says they love this theory. Found it a few years ago, and it makes so much sense. It really, truly does. It's pretty fantastic. Are you saying that I upgraded? If you're saying that we upgraded as far as the look of the book club, I have increased my camera and lighting equipment, and I changed my set and got myself a new chair. So we're doing big things here. So yay! Goodness. So yeah, it's gonna be a quick talk about these 2 chapters, and then we're going to dive into the interview with Neil Howe about Generation X, because I really am excited to watch this again, because I watched it once, and I had smoked a lot of weed, and I was kind of, going to bed while I was watching it, and I really enjoyed it. So hopefully it'll be just as great for you all. All right.
I watch my movies.
So Seasons of Time, and one thing that I really picked up from this chapter, or one thing that really stood out for me, is kind of how historians or how we look historically at time and how time was recorded. And I thought that was very interesting, because they were talking, it's really going into the whole idea of the seculum, the life cycle of a human, the 80 to 100 years cycle in theory. But before they really established all of that, they talked about how historically we record time through leaders and kingdoms and royalty up until about the 14th or 15th century, and then it starts talking about centuries. So I really started thinking about how they recorded time, and was the first century really 100 years? Was the fourth century really 100 years? Was it 10 years? Were days the same length? Were months the same? Like, obviously not. So I wonder just how much recorded history of these different centuries is really maybe a few months or a few years, or maybe it's 1,000 years. Like, I don't even know. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say?
Absolutely. It absolutely does. Although the thing is I think, I think passage of time, it's one of those things that you do generally have some sort of intrinsic, innate knowledge about. Even if you're never told what a day or a night is, there's two different phases of life,
Right.
And that, a day is each one of those. Now, you may not be able to figure out what a week is, but a month you can if you're paying attention to the moon. Right?
Lunar cycles, right?
The lunar cycle, right? And the whole thing about the lunar cycle is, that is something that happens without question.
Right.
It is so regular that it's something that people have learned to count. So whether it's years, but a lot of the older, really, really super old civilizations counted lunar cycles, counted moons,
Right. Yep.
So, but I do think, it is fascinating to me as well, because the idea that a calendar is fixed is like craziness,
Right.
Just craziness. You can't. You have to decide. Okay, what's your starting point, and then what happened to what before is that?
Right. Yeah. And the other thing that really dominated, so like as E.L.B. King says here, they based on the starts of kingdoms and empires. They absolutely did. And also war. War was a big part of how they marked time and the passage of time, how things changed. War was such a big part of how they did things. So and then of course the circle, we got to get into the cycle is the circle, right. And all of that, and then how once one cycle or circle is complete, it breaks and starts anew. It seemed kind of be the theory here. You're not repeating the same circle, you're breaking off and starting a new one, but there's always a cycle to it. And but yeah, so this stuff really, this is what I like to talk about when I smoke a lot of weed is, time, man. Like how
one of my favorite is, what if my color of blue is not the same as your color of blue? What if you're a different color, man? But that's true. It could be true. It could be that, your physical innate nature of time is different than other cultures, and how you count time is different. Obviously, we have different calendars.
Yeah,
the Jews are still out. We're still on the year 5876, I think.
Oh wow, really?
I don't know. I have to check. Don't quote me on that.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
What year is it?
Yeah, so there's all kinds of different years. Find out what year it is in Jewish history. As far as the seculum goes,
5,786. I was almost right. I had the numbers mixed up.
Nice. Yeah. 5,786. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, but we also have 13 months, and they're not named the same.
Right.
Yeah.
13 months. Yeah. I see the posts all the time. If we just had 13 months with 28 days each, instead of this 12 months nonsense. But, and it's weird and it's interesting also how civilizations or countries just had to decide, I guess. You got to decide how you're going to mark things. How you're going to mark time, how you're going to, I guess you do. It's kind of a requirement for a civilization to mark time.
The week thing always makes me strict. Like, how did we decide on 7 days as a week?
Right.
Yeah, that's what makes me crazy about. It makes sense if it's a 28-day month because of the lunar cycle.
Right.
I don't.
Yeah, it's weird. Now, also the other thing that was very important we had war on the big scale of time theory, but also the length of a human life, really. And that was really the big thing that was really kind of the underlying thought process of how things were recorded, especially in ancient history, was there's this one passage here on page 26 for the this is talking about the Etruscans, going back way far. For them, history meant more if somebody were still alive who could personally remember it. Upon the death of the last person who recalled a given event, Etruscans were inclined to move on to fresh memories of newer events. The secula became their way of recording history from the inside out, as people actually lived it and remembered it, not from the outside in, as the scribblings of priests in a king's court. So, I don't know. That just kind of stuck out to me in the whole talk of the Etruscan. So we have the four different parts of the long seculum, the 100 years. We got the four different parts of the life cycle: the childhood, the youth, the maturity, and the elderhood. And then we also have the 2-phase time. We have the 4 phases and the two phases. So we have, the different seasons. Then we have the yin and the yang, basically. So all of those different kinds of concepts are here in this Seasons of Time chapter. And it really lays it out kind of. You have your big long time span, and then you have your cycles within that long time span, if that makes any sense. So that's where we're at here on in the history of time. The lifespan, on page 33, it says the lifespan plays a dominant role in the rhythm of history, precisely when modern society has largely abandoned cyclical time in favor of linear time. So there you go. Also, and here it said the 1500s became the first 100-year period to be proclaimed a century, and the first to be affixed a century number. I've always wondered how long the Dark Ages really were, or if they're really how much of the so-called Dark Ages was really a thing, and what really happened, and
That's the thing. We'll never know.
We'll never know.
Gone.
It's all gone. Yeah.
It's gone. We don't know. That hard drive no longer exists. I just watched Rollerball.
Yeah. Rollerball.
There's a line in Rollerball where, we lost a hard drive. The whole 13th century, it's gone. We don't know where it went.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Let me get to my book up here.
I agree, though. There's the craziness of the Dark Ages.
Yeah, all this stuff, and it also makes me just question any kind of history. That there's always the thing, the history is written by the winners, but at the same time, it's how do you believe what is written? It's just it makes my head hurt sometimes when I think about it. Let's get into the Seculum of War and Peace, if I can find it here. The pages are a little bit different than the pages. If you have not gotten the book yet, you can find it for free on the Internet Archive. I just got to find the page where I want to get to here. And we'll make it, I promise. The Seculum, I want to get to the Seculum of War and Peace. That's what I'm looking for. And I think I'm about to hit it. There it is. So as we were talking about, as I mentioned earlier, war and peace is a very big part of the rhythm and circles of time. And they really kind of described it. Well, they didn't more than kind of describe it. They laid it out on page 36 of the book. Let me get down to so they showed how this is from Toynbee, Arnold Toynbee, a British historian. He identified and dated 5 repetitions of this cycle, each initiated by the most decisive war of its century. So again, war is a big part of pretty much each century. You had the Italian Wars from 1494 to 1525. That was the overture. First cycle was the Imperial Wars. Second cycle, War of Spanish Succession. Third cycle, French Revolutionary and Napoleonic Wars. And fourth cycle began with World Wars I and II. It would therefore imply that the fifth cycle will likely be starting in the next decade. Yeah, there should be a major war of some kind. Now, whether it will look like this kind of traditional physical war, that's yet to be determined. We've ascended into different levels of warfare at this point. That doesn't necessarily require armies, but yeah, it looks like if this theory is to, if we push it out over into our now, modern times, it would you would conclude that the fifth cycle is about to begin. And after we end, or through this crisis and fourth turning. So there you have it, and there you are.
It's the fourth turning of the fifth cycle.
Yeah, let's see how many numbers we can throw out at you. All right, so let's see. Yeah, exactly. You can't believe the news today, let alone historical news. It's like, what do you even believe? It just makes you realize that everything's a narrative, whether it be modern day news or history. It's taught to you in a way that, especially if it comes from the state or whoever's in charge, it's always taught in a way that benefits whoever's in power, and that's how it's been our whole lives. So, we got fed a whole narrative post World War II in our history classes.
Well, I mean, that's like, it's human history. That's
right.
That's human nature. I don't think it's endemic of one particular group of people. That's
absolutely, I agree with that. I agree with that.
That is the way of humanity in of itself. And if we want to become more enlightened, we want to become a higher level of consciousness or whatever, it would behoove us to start being more I don't know. I mean, I don't even know how to say it, but start being more truthy or so. I don't know. There is no, you're right. There is no, you cannot possibly know the absolute truth. There's no way, even if you're there and watching things, your perspective on something is different than somebody who's standing right next to you's perspective.
Right.
So how do you know what the absolute truth is? There is no such thing as an absolute truth. You just kind of have to, judge for yourself from all of the choices of media or news that you have, and decide what you think is the most plausible narrative.
Right. Yeah.
Whatever that might happen to be. With history, at least the last 100 years, we have had at least the opportunity to film it. Yeah. Even though we know that can be manipulated now. And
right.
However, it's still more, I think it's the veracity of film is probably higher than eyewitness accounts. I mean, it's actually, eyewitness accounts are typically the worst form of evidence.
That is true. That is true. Eyewitness accounts are the worst. Because you can get different narratives from different people or different perspectives from different people.
And memory is a tricky thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very tricky thing, especially when you start getting older and you start remembering things that didn't actually happen because it happened in a dream or something.
Right.
That happens to me all the time. Maybe it's because anyhow.
So as we get to these,
it's the old Don Quixote thing. What is the truth?
As we get through this current seculum, we're at the end of the current seculum, which is that 80 to 100 year cycle. Let me get to the chart, or here we go.
Yeah, setting it up so that the next decade or two are going to be real interesting.
Yeah, this next decade should be the end of the current seculum. We are in the winter of this cycle, the fourth quarter, if you will. The crisis ends one seculum and launches the next. And so this this graph on page 39 kind of gives you all of the different historians, their different theories on time, but they all really line up with kind of a lot of the same ideas as far as the number 4, going through the different seasons, the different quarters, and how those all and how those all go together, and how it's just kind of the cycle of history. It's the rhythm of history, even regardless of what people do or the decisions that they make or who's in charge. It seems like this always plays out because of the different generations and that which we're going to get into.
It does actually make me kind of wonder, is our behavior that intrinsically linked to the mechanical cycles of the orbit of the Earth, i.e. the turning of the Earth, the orbit of the Earth around the sun, and ultimately our place in the universe? Doesn't it just seem like all of this it's all cyclical? So everything is cyclical.
I've heard that. I've heard theories about how influential the lunar cycle is to the human behavior and development. I think there's arguments to be made that yes, all of that is.
It's like it's so deep seated that it's on a massive subconscious level,
right?
Like a macro subconscious level, like
right.
It's ingrained so much in our DNA that we enact these cycles in mass without even knowing it.
Right. Yeah, and that's the crazy part about it.
Yeah. I think I just broke my brain.
Uh-oh.
I'm kidding. But
now, also with these different phases and how war was a big part of each century and each cycle. Also, on the flip side, awakenings were also a part of each cycle. You have your yin and your yang. You have your war, and you have your spiritual awakenings and that kind of a thing. So, we had the World War II and all of that, but then we had the 1960s, 70s, what they call in the book, the New Age Awakening. So there's yin and yang, and a lot of it has to do with how things are passed down to generations. As we get later into the next chapter, they talk about how one generation is all about war, but they want to protect their offspring from that. So the offspring isn't really into war. That's for the grandchildren. Like it goes in cycles with war and awakenings.
Great, yeah.
Yeah. It says if awakenings are the summers and crises the winters of the human experience, transitional eras are also required. A spring-like era must traverse the path from crisis to awakening, and a autumnal era the path from awakening to crisis. Where the two secular solstices are solutions to needs eventually created by one another, the secular equinoxes must be directional opposites of one another. Where the post-crisis era warms and lightens, the post-awakening era chills and darkens. Where the cyclical spring brings consensus, order, and stability, the autumn brings argument, fragmentation, and uncertainty. And so they're definitely laying the groundwork for all the turnings here with all of their history. They also bring out the importance of this Seculum in America and how it was online with Europe and Western civilization until the 18th century. It says the Seculum in America and Europe beat to a similar rhythm. Ever since, the American Seculum has shown a timing that is more regular and even better defined than the European cycles chronicled by Toynbee. So America and its linear progression has kind of tried to bust out of this whole idea of cyclical time, but I don't think we're going to win. I don't think we're going to win that argument.
We're always the rebels, aren't we?
Yep. No. Now, in this chapter of the Seasons of Time, it does go into the Anglo-American crisis and awakenings. This is kind of a rehash of generations. For those that haven't read Generations, I'm not going to dive into this, but if you didn't read Generations, this is a really good spot to go through all the historical crises and awakenings in Anglo-American culture, going back to the 1600s.
Also,
So
if you didn't follow the book club for Generations, the playlist is right there underneath Natalie's icon.
Oh.
And you can watch all of the videos there and comment. We still want to look at the comments and respond. And if you're interested, and if you watch all of those old videos, then you should get a prize. But I don't know what that
yeah. I need to come up with a prize of some kind.
Right?
I know, right?
Well, you do get participation bonus points on the final exam.
I don't know. We're not millennials. I don't know if I like participation points and trophies.
Extra credit.
I just like to be
We're
honored.
Gen X. We do like extra credit.
That's true. I'll do extra credit all day long.
Extra credit. Oh yeah,
Yes.
you're definitely going to have an essay exam.
There will be an essay exam at the end of this.
Yeah,
100%.
you're going to have to. Yeah, your essay question is going to be something along the lines of, what is the next crisis going to be, and when is it coming?
Yeah. Better, or how are we going to make it from the crisis to the first turning? What's going to happen? What is your theory? I need you guys to map out the next 20 years. I want to see what your theories are as to how it's going to.
In all seriousness, if you guys have that idea and stuff, I definitely want to talk about it.
100%. Yeah.
If you have any theories, crazy, crackpot, or realistic, whatever they are, we want to talk about it. We're here.
Yeah.
For you. We are here for you. There's nothing out. Go for it.
Absolutely. Because these, from my perspective, and I've said this before, from now until about 2032 is going to be just wild.
Yeah.
And then if everything, one way or another, we're going to get into a first turning at some point in the mid 2030s. How that looks, I don't know.
Yeah.
These next couple of elections are going to determine a lot. And
I'm just hoping I survive and get to see the next turning.
Right. 100%.
That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
I just voted. Okay.
Yep.
Right here. Done. Gotta drop it off. 8 pages.
8 pages? Wow.
For a primary. There are 61 idiots running for governor.
Your state is a state. You've got some interesting laws over there for how you all do things.
It's a shit show sometimes.
Yeah.
It really is. It's a shit show sometimes. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it works.
Yeah. All right.
Work. No, let's go. I don't want
Likewise, with the seculum, history moves in a progression of ebbs and flows whose schedule is regular, yet not precisely fixed. So that is a good thing to know, that the dates aren't set in stone, but the schedule.
It's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen. Yeah. Exactly.
It's gonna happen. We all know it coming.
Yes, 100%. All right, getting into chapter 3, Seasons of Life. Seasons of life. All right. Because the seasons of history, let me move my page. Here I'm going through my my own book instead of the book.
One chapter in half an hour. That is a record.
I know.
Woo, good job.
Thank you.
Pat on the back. You deserve it.
Thank you. I was on a mission to just kind of
You didn't let me disrail you. You were like, boom, I'm here.
Yeah. And that's all we really needed to do, because we just spent 13 weeks in Generations going through what they went through in chapter 2.
Although we should ask the class or the chat. Ask the chat. You guys have any questions about chapter 2 before we move on to chapter 3?
Yes. Anything you want to
talk about here? Yeah. Anything that you pointed out, that you highlighted that we didn't talk about?
Yes, definitely. Reprimand is here. Woo!
Power
Let's go.
Extreme. That was the what do you call it? Ah, I forget what it is.
I don't know.
It was a toy line in the Centurions. That was the Centurions. It was a toy line in the. I wish you'd showered before this started. Now you can't leave. Huh? I'm sorry. I wish
Who
I
needs to shower?
Yeah. Overrated.
Yep, I think you're right, Reprimanda, and we're gonna get into that when we watch the video.
So I think what you're saying is we're going to be the Jedi Knights. I love that. The original Jedi Knights are the protectors of peace.
Yep.
I love it.
I love it too. All right. Seasons of life. And this is going to be a big this is a big foundation of this theory of the Strauss and Howe generational theory. The seasons of life is based on the Fourscore journey. Fourscore journey, a score, which I really think we should bring that word back. A score is 20 years.
I love
that. Yes.
Score, yeah.
And so the Fourscore journey is basically the 80 years of the human life cycle. So the first season is childhood, the spring of life. The coming of age period is also when youths learn to substitute the approval of their friends. Oh, wait, sorry. The first season is childhood, spring of life, and it ends in a rites of passage. In America, it could be a high school graduation. It can be they had different things on here that voting, first job, driver's license, bar mitzvah. It can be different things, entering military service. So America doesn't have a specific rite of passage for childhood into the coming of age, but it happens around the age of 18 to 21 in that time frame in America.
Well, I bet you they didn't have quinceañera on their lips back then.
They didn't have quinceañera. I think quinceañera is at 15, but bar mitzvah is like 13, so that's a little young.
I know that's what made me think of quinceañera. I was like, bar mitzvah, that's like 13.
Yeah, that's a little young for the American for the American journey, but I mean, technically, I guess, and I don't know much about it, but that's the rite of passage into, is it adulthood for the Jewish faith, or what is specifically the bar mitzvah? Like what?
Yeah, it's when you become a man, or
when you become a man. Okay,
man or a woman if you're a bat mitzvah.
Gotcha. But it's when you're like 13, right?
Yeah, typically it's when you go through the thing when you've done. I didn't do it myself, but
gotcha.
It's like basically graduating a Hebrew school.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. You got to go in front. You got to read a whole bunch of the Torah.
Right.
You perform a whole bunch of rituals,
and you get lots of money from friends and family.
And they throw a huge party.
Yeah.
It'll be me at age 7 when they were like, "Do you want to go to Hebrew school and get bar mitzvahed?" And I'm like, "Nah, too much work." Don't ask me is sitting here going, "Why did I say no? I could have suckered it out. I could have suffered for 4 years or whatever it is and gotten paid." You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
I would have gotten paid, even like if I had done it, man. At 13, my grandparents were still like around and making money.
Yeah,
their friends were hugely rich people too, and I could have had. I'm just kicking myself.
Yeah, you really missed the boat on that. That was on you. They should have just made you do it instead of giving the 7-year-old the decision. They should have just been like, "You're doing this."
That was my parents. They made me go to. They made me go to music school, but they asked me if I wanted to go to Hebrew school.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah. They should have made me go to Hebrew school and asked me if I wanted to go.
Yeah. They should have switched that one. All right. Once we get out of childhood and have your coming of age period, then we get into the young adulthood. The coming of age period is also when youths learn. This is a good line. I love this. When youths learn to substitute the approval of their friends for that of their parents, a substitution that helps forge a generational identity. So I thought that was very interesting. I never really thought about it that way, but it makes so much sense. As a child, you're looking for the approval of your parents, but once you come of age, you're looking for the approval of your friends and your peers. And that is how a generational identity is formed. As Yale life cycle scholar John Showalter notes, going from child to adult, you go over a bridge of your peers. Beyond this bridge of adolescence comes young adulthood, the summer of life. So that would be your 20s and 30s, the summer of life.
I miss my summer of life.
Yes. This is the age for converting dreams and ideas into projects and plans, for launching careers and families, for soldiering, for providing the muscle and energy of society, which is kind of what our society has always focused on, was this time of life. It seems like every bit of marketing, advertising, entertainment, everything seems to be really focused on this time of life.
The 18 to 34 demographic.
Yeah.
One demographic.
Yeah.
In all of market research that they want, no matter what. I worked in market research for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
And by and far, everything is targeted to the 18 to 34 cluster.
Yeah. It used to be 25-54. When I first got into marketing and advertising in the 90s, the golden demo was 25 to 54. Then they changed it to 18 to 49, and now it's 18 to 34. And but that's where everything is focused on. And we're not there anymore.
No. I don't know if, and even when it was 18 to 30, even when we were in that 18 to 34 bracket, even when we were the target group, they were targeting younger even.
They were targeting the ones around us. They were targeting the olders, the boomers, and the millennials. We just kind of got lost in the conversation.
Yeah. We get forgotten. We literally get forgotten a lot.
Yes.
Can't tell you how many of those memes that I've seen. It's like where they listed a bunch of generations and they literally forget Gen X.
Yep. Yep. Makes me laugh. But the funny thing is, because somebody made a video about this not long ago, a newer channel made a video about how Gen X was the lost or the forgotten generation. But I made the point of in the 70s, from 1977 to about 1999, our generation was marketed hard.
True.
From Star Wars to 9/11.
From Star Wars.
Yeah. Because Star Wars launched the whole idea of movie marketing and merchandising and that kind of a thing, and the toys and all that stuff. And then we get into the 80s with the cartoons and the commercials and the cereal and the toys. And we get into the 90s, the car commercials, the soda commercials, the electronics commercials. Everything from 1977 to 9/11 was targeted at us. Well, not everything, but a very big part of marketing was targeted at us. And then once 9/11 hit, poof, we were gone. And it was all about the boomers and the millennials. How that happened, I'm not quite sure.
Well, with the millennials, it was because of the millennium.
Right.
That literally brought the name to the forefront.
Right.
And there was a market shift in, it was, people were starting to realize that there was the helicopter parenting was on the rise.
Right.
With that generation. So,
right.
It started because we started to realize what's going on with these kids. What are we doing to these kids? And we started
right. Or the fact that, there are kids. Oh,
yeah. I forgot about that.
There's kids in our country.
Yeah.
What's up, Gemini Gypsy? Glad you made it. But so you go from the first score is your childhood. The second score is your young adulthood. The third score, midlife, the great harvest. Let me get down to that because I really wanted to focus on that since that's where Gen X is right now. Let's get down to it.
Midlife sucks.
Actually, I'm leaning in. I'm gonna make it the most of it.
Breaking bones again.
Next comes midlife, the great harvest, what Henry Adams referred to as the Indian summer of life, a little sunny and a little sad, like the season. Thomas Hardy termed midlife the center of your time and not a point at its circumference. It is Ortega Gasset's phase of dominance. an age for confirming lifestyles, implementing ideas and dreams, realizing projects and plans, mentoring young adults, setting standards for children, and notes Levinson, taking the mantle of power. This is also when individuals realize that the rising generation is no longer their own. Feeling the first signs of physical aging, people realize that they are passing beyond their biological prime. Midlife brings Carl Jung's phase of individuation, a time where man's values and even his body do tend to change into their opposites.
Boy, howdy.
Go ahead.
Boy, howdy.
Yeah. When does midlife begin? According to many authorities, it begins sometimes between the 40th and 45th year. Aristotle wrote that a person's physical zenith is reached at age 35, his mental zenith at age 49. The average is age 42. Over the last 2 centuries, the American age of entry into midlife roles has gradually moved downward. Before the Civil War, newly elected presidents averaged 58 years of age. Ever since, they've averaged 54. Throughout the 19th century, the youngest president, Ulysses S. Grant, entered the office at age 46. In the 20th, 3, Theodore Roosevelt, John Kennedy, and Bill Clinton, have reached the office between the ages of 42 and 46. But ever since then, it's all been old people. In the early 1960s, they were unusually powerful in politics, while today they are more powerful in the culture. So right now, midlifers, I would say, are more powerful in the culture than they are in politics.
100%.
But that could change in the next few years. We could see a flop, on that. So for most people, after midlife, life ends in elderhood, the winter. Time for engaging in leisure and reflection, for retiring from exhausting duties of career and family, and for passing the reins to younger hands. As Ogden Nash has rhymed, senescence begins and middle age ends, the day your descendants outnumber your friends. Ooh.
Jeez Louise. Ouch.
Ouch. We're not there yet. Let's slow down. We're talking about boomers now.
I'm losing friends and relatives too fast.
Right. Yeah. And Rachel brings up a good point, and I don't want to fly through this. These different phases of life have changed a little bit, and people are getting married, having children, and buying houses later now. And I wonder how much that will affect this rhythm of life that has been, kind of the thing for pretty much all of time. Used to, the 20s and 30s was the time, like they said, for converting dreams and ideas into projects, launching careers and families. But does this mean that childhood is lasting longer? Does this mean that everything is getting pushed back a few years? Because you can have your kids on your insurance until 25, 26.
Mm-hmm.
So could this mean that we're going to see a change where childhood ends at 25 and we go, and then it pushes it back to where your young adulthood is 25 to 50, and then your midlife is, I don't know, or maybe young adulthood shortens and your childhood lengthens, or maybe midlife shortens. I don't know how this is going to affect the rhythm of life, but it's definitely worth bringing up. That
I think people live longer now too.
Right. And they do mention that they said that there could be a thing called late elderhood once you hit, past 84. But instead of adding a fifth of late elderhood, I would just expand the 4. That's what I would do.
That's what I would do as well. And I think that is going to be what happens. But then, remember the yin yang. It's going to happen in one generation. It may trickle down to the next generation.
Right.
But then the generations after that are going to go the exact opposite way.
Right.
So it's the yin yang of it. So in the short term, probably childhood is going to be lengthened. And we're seeing that now with children not leaving their parents' house.
I feel like you're speaking from experience there, Grendelson.
And speaking to someone specifically, I love having my kid. I'm kidding. But that is more of the trend where kids are staying with their parents a lot longer.
Right.
And listen, I don't even want to. I mean, I kid my child about that, but at the same time, I'm glad that I'm able to provide that for them. You know,
I agree with that. The idea, it's a very American thing to kind of, especially post World War II, to kick your kids out of the house at 18 and let them go do their own thing. And while I understand the idea and reasoning behind it, I feel like we've really, I feel like the boomers have really put into this culture the whole idea of, screw you behind me. I'm just going to do my thing and kick you out on your own, and you're going to earn your own money, and I'm not giving you anything of mine. And you know what I'm saying? Like it's this idea of really disconnecting from their offspring and from their children and grandchildren, as far as, instead of trying to facilitate or, you know, help them move up in the world or help them succeed or give them it's like, cut them off, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and do it on your own without any consideration for the world that we live in now, or for the changing of the world that we live in now. And it's really bizarre. It's really bizarre that
I think there's actually I think the term is boomer myopia. You know, they can't see anything farther in front of their face.
I like that. Boomer myopia.
Yeah, the way it is about it, they are pretty much like that about everything. And they do not see, I see these memes every day. They do not understand what it is like to be a young person today. They don't understand any of it. And they are still living in a 1960s world. And we are not in the 60s anymore.
No, we're not. No, we are not. But boy, I see a lot of the boomers out trying to act like they are still in the 60s. And it's like, what world are you guys living in? And it's just,
I want to go back to the 60s too, you know. I mean, I get it. The drugs were great, the sex was a lot, you know, the music was outstanding, you know, movies were starting to get better. TV sucked, but you got Star Trek in '66, so what's wrong with that? I wouldn't go back to the '60s myself and visiting, but you know, I mean, oof.
Yeah, the other thing about, and not just with boomers, because, you know, boomers have done their thing, but at the same time, our generation and millennials, I think nobody. I saw a graph the other day that in 1975, 90% of women at age 25 were married, or maybe it's age 30. Okay. It was age 30. 91% of women age 30 in 1975 were married. And today it's like 22%. Like it, and same with men. Like it dropped from here. It's on my phone because I kept it, and I'll have to show it to you all. Hold on just a second. And I'm wondering how this is going to.
That's insane.
You're not gonna be able to see it. Yeah. 1975, Americans married by age 30. Women 91%, men 81%. By 1985, women 77% were married by age of 30, and men 67%. By 1995, it went 64% women, 54% men. 2005, 50% of women, 41% of men. 2015, 37% of women, 27% of men. And then in 2025, Americans married by the age of 30, women 25.6%, men 16.5%.
Wow.
Not only are people not getting married, they're not having children. And if they do, they're not having them until their 30s and 40s. I'm really interested to see how this is going to affect the cycle of life, the rhythm of life in society.
As someone who did not get married until I was 30, how old was I? 30. And no, 34. Forget what year I got married. 32. And I had a child at 35. So, you know, to me, that's normal. And as an elderly parent, I think it's better for the child to have an older parent rather than a younger parent, because while the younger parents have the energy, they also get really burned out really, really quickly. And
Yeah.
they are, they're always, and also there's that temptation to want to go do things that they can't do anymore. Whereas as an elderly parent, I had left all that by the wayside and didn't give a crap and
Yeah.
just enjoyed my child and just being around my child. So,
Right. There's pros and cons to both sides.
Sure, there's got to be an equilibrium. I mean, it's got to be right for whoever you are.
Right.
What's right for me is not right for everybody.
Right. I mean, I never married or had children, and because I thought I could push through my 20s and 30s doing whatever I wanted, and then the husband and the children will follow when I'm like in my mid 30s, and that's a lie. That is a lie for women. I mean, for men can do it differently, but for women, pregnancy is geriatric at the age of 35. Like, it is not like your body. It is prime to have a baby. 18 to 34 is the prime time for a woman to have a child. So building our society around this idea that women should wait to get married and have children, I think it can be very harmful in the big scheme of things. Not that people can't make their own choices for what works for them, but as a society, I think it shouldn't be a bad thing to say, hey, just so you know, these are the prime times to do these things. Doesn't mean you have to, but this kind of works better this way than this way. Yeah. I don't know. My mom had me at 19. I got married at 19 and had me at 19. And
same with my mom.
Yeah. And then by the time she was in her late 30s, all of her kids were grown, and she has a career and does her thing now, and it's like, I kind of wish I would have done that. I wish I wouldn't have put it off, because putting it off for some mythical whatever, is not necessarily the road to go down for most people. So for a lot of people, women anyways. But
I know there's I particularly, having been the child of a young mother, I knew I wasn't ready. And that was the thing for me, is I knew I couldn't. There was, even at 19, when my mom was having me, I knew I wasn't ready. And when I was 23, when my dad was 23 when I was born, I wasn't even ready, So I was like, I'm not going to do it until I'm ready.
Right. Absolutely. And the other thing about society is that it wasn't until the boomers where the whole idea of teenagers and this kind of adolescent life was really emphasized. Before then, the earlier generations, it was like you were a child and then you just kind of started working and became like, there wasn't this, like, things just started earlier in life, I guess I should say.
Yeah, adolescence didn't matter until after World War II.
Right.
Because there was no emphasis on the childhood portion.
Right.
You weren't even thought about until you were an adult. So
yeah. Until you could be drafted for war.
Exactly.
or give birth. Exactly. One of the two. All right. Now, let's see. Let's get into some generations and history. Let's see. We got the child. So we went through the different stages: childhood, young adulthood, midlife, elderhood, and then they added late elderhood. But I want to amend that and just add in some extra years to the four phases.
Yeah, I would say childhood at this point goes up to
25,
24, at least.
Yeah.
25.
Yeah, 24, 25 is where I would.
25 is an interesting year. It is like that's when you can rent a car.
Yes.
B, that's when you have to get off your parents' insurance.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it's also when I think they said the brain becomes fully developed.
I think that's the big scientific.
I don't know how much truth there is to that.
I think it's a theory, but yeah.
But I do know that definitely the way you look at things definitely changes. Something that when it comes to brain development, it wasn't until they said the mid 20s where you can truly like look ahead and see around the corner, if that makes any sense. Before that age of life, it's all about the here and now, and you don't think of how will this have consequences? What could come next? That kind of thinking kind of starts in the mid-20s with the brain development.
A quarter century, quarter life crisis.
Yeah.
Or a quarter life, what do we call them? There's a quarter life modification or a quarter life change as you were.
Right.
To your thinking, your thought processes, because your brain does finally solidify and you are supposedly socialized enough to be considered an adult at that, even in young adulthood. But once you're in your mid-20s, you are an adult, no matter what. So by then you definitely, and I will say, I definitely remember my 25th year being a very critical, poor year in my life. Very critical. A lot of shit happened in that year that changed who I was and where I was going.
Yeah.
So
I turned 9/11 happened right before my 24th birthday. So that whole era of our country, 9/11 and then the Iraq war, going into all that was my 24th and 25th years, and there was so much going on in the world, and then of course, in my own personal development. So that was an interesting time to have such a an event happen.
My 25th year was 1996, the whole year. And it was really interesting because the Republican National Convention was in San Diego that year where I was living.
96, gotcha.
96. Comic-Con was huge that year. Was the biggest year up until that point. Not quite as crazy as it is now, but pretty crazy. I went all 4 days.
Nice.
Have some memories that I can't share with the public.
There's no need. You can keep them to yourself.
Oh, I will. You get me really drunk to get those stories. And it was huge. It was a big year. A lot of things changed. Just went through girlfriends that year. It was crazy. It was really crazy. And
I like this. I like this theory of moving childhood to 0 to 24. Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment on our part.
I think at least for the not maybe the millennials, but the Gen Z and Alpha for sure.
Definitely.
Especially Gen Z, because they're 19. I got 19, 20-year-old sitting here going, yeah, you ain't got to be an adult in 2 years.
Yeah, right. So 0 to 24 for childhood. I would amend young adulthood from 25 to 45, and then 25 to 44, and then midlife 45 to 64.
Yeah, because even
and then 65 plus would be your elderhood.
I think for youngers, midlife is starting because the millennials are just now hitting 40, right?
They're hitting 40. Well, depending on how you define millennial, they're 45. Their oldest are 45.
So they're just now hitting midlife, where most of us are now almost entering elderhood.
Yeah.
Some of us are starting to enter elderhood.
Yeah.
I think for us, I think our elderhood is still going to start fairly early, but it's just going to last longer.
Yeah, that could be.
I don't have a problem with the 63 age for starting elderhood because I think that's about right, but maybe even a little later.
Right.
Because it does seem like even the boomers are aging a lot less rapidly.
Right.
Way too many boomers not way too many, but a lot of boomers are still very, very active.
Yeah, my mom is 68. My dad is 69, or my stepdad is 69. They both still run businesses. They both work full-time jobs, have other gigs. They're still living life just like they were when they were 50. I mean, they're just as active. But it's going to change. They're even talking about it. Next couple of years, they're going to slow down when they hit 70. But yeah, so I definitely think we could stretch out the different age, the different cycles a little bit longer.
Absolutely.
The four childhood through elder life cycles comprise the quaternity of the human life cycle. The combined length of these four phases, roughly 84 years, matches the span of the American speculum dating back to the Revolution.
Crazy.
Yeah. It's it, and it's there. The seasonality, I don't know what that word is. The seasonally of the life cycle is what makes possible the creation of generations. To see how this works, imagine a traditional society in which all 4 phases of life are clearly defined and strictly prescribed. Each new phase of life, group tries to perform its social role, growth, vitality, power, or leadership exactly as the last group performed it. There are no generations to speak of. There are no unique life cycle dramas and no creative biographical trajectories.
But if you want to live, you have to go to Carousel and renew.
Now imagine that the society is suddenly hit by a great event. Some sort of emergency so fraught with social consequence that it transforms all society's members, yet transforms them differently according to their phase of life responses. For children, this response might mean showing an awestruck deference to elders and staying out of their way. For young adults, taking up arms and risking death to meet the enemy. For midlifers, organizing the troops, managing the home front, and mobilizing society for maximum effort. For elders, setting strategy and clarifying the larger purpose. The stress of the great event leaves a different emotional imprint according to the social role each is called on to play. Differences reinforced by the social interaction within each group. Children mirror each other's dread, youths each other's valor, midlifers each other's competence, and seniors each other's wisdom. If the great event is successfully resolved, its enduring memory imparts to people in each phase of life a unique location in history, a generational persona. In particular, it marks young adults as collective heroes around whom grand myths later arise. So this is really the foundation of their theory here. Depending on where you are in life, what part of the life cycle you are in, your generation is in, will determine how your generation reacts, and everybody's going to react differently. And they're going to do things differently. So how the boomers did things over the last 20 years, from Clinton to Bush to Obama, and even Trump, how they've done things over the last 20, 30 years, that's not going to be how Gen X does things when they hit that part of life over the next 20 years, if that makes sense. So yes, generations are going to be very different. And just because you're old, or just because you're in midlife, or just because you're a kid, doesn't mean that you're going to do things the same as the generation that came before you. And matter of fact, you're not going to do it the same as the generation that came before you.
Typically, you're going to do exactly the opposite.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what we like this.
So here's the American generations in World War II. World War II, I don't think I can overstate how important World War II has been on our country and our own lives, our whole lives. It has literally set the stage for how everything, for how our government reacts domestically to internationally, to the business cycles. All of this stuff was set forth by the generations of World War II.
And shit that happened.
Yeah.
How many years now? Almost
80.
81 now.
Yeah.
81 years ago. Shit that happened 81 years ago is still having an effect on your life
today.
On a daily basis.
Yep.
The fact that there are very few, that there's like less than 1,000 actual combatants still alive. It's crazy.
Right. Yep. And nobody that was in power politically is still here. That made all of these decisions and did all of these things.
No.
Yeah. World War II left a massive impression on the phase of life social roles of everyone alive at the time. It cast missionary elders as champions of long-held visions, stamping the peers of Henry Stimson, George Marshall, Douglas MacArthur, and Albert Einstein as the wise old men of their era, and separating them in America's memory from the prior progressive generation. The war enabled the middle-aged lost to get a big job done. The victory empowered young adult GIs to acquire the hubris of world conquerors, enhancing their reputation for astronaut civic virtue and great society teamwork, and later earning them the longest presidential tenure of any U.S. generation until the boomers. The war bred caution and sensitivity among silent children, lending them a persona that produced a lifelong preoccupation with process, fairness, and artistic expression. So powerful was the social impact of World War II that it came to define several generational boundaries. The GIs include nearly everyone who saw combat in the war. The lost, by contrast, were those combat eligibles of the prior World War, and the silent are those who remember the war personally and may have been enlisted but mostly missed combat action. The initial boomer birth cohort of 1943 includes the first victory babies, those who were nurtured from the start with enormous optimism and were too young to recall the wartime absence of fathers. Among generations born after, the symbolic memory of that epic war keeps resonating, but with dampened echoes. As GIs passed into retirement, the 13th generation, Gen X, came of age without heroes and amid adult criticism for allegedly having forgotten the war-era sense of community. Today's child millennials will be the last generation to have much personal contact with G.I. Joe and Rosie the Riveter, whose old civic values are being freshly emphasized by families, schools, churches, and the media. By the time the next generation arrives, Gen Z, World War II will be pure history, as distant from their lives as the Civil War was for the child silent. So we are in the next phase of history. We're getting ready to hit it.
Yeah, my great-grandparents, my child's great-grandparents fought in World War II now. So
yeah,
they would, yeah.
Yeah, my grandparents, yeah. Mm-hmm.
My grandparents fought in World War II.
Nope. And all of the world that was set in motion by that event is now going away. So what happens as a great event and its echoes fade with the passage of time? In a traditional society, nothing. Absent another great event, generations gradually disappear. 21 years afterward, only 3 distinct generations shaped by the event remain alive. Yada, yada, yada. It ends the saga. We're in a modern society. In a modern society, new great events keep occurring and with great regularity. These are the solstices of the seculum, crisis and awakenings. Through 5 centuries of Anglo-American history, no span of more than 50 years, the duration of 2 phases of life, has ever elapsed without the occurrence of a crisis or an awakening. Every generation has thus been shaped by either a crisis or an awakening during one of its first 2 phases of life, as it encountered both a crisis and awakening at some point through their life cycle. For Generation X, we were born during an awakening. Oh, it's going to be on the side. I might not be able to show it. We were born during awakening, and now we are living through a crisis in middle age. So childhood was the awakening, middle age is the crisis. And then we'll get to the spring in our elderhood, supposedly.
I hope so.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, there's one. This is one thing. Every 40 years or so, the persona of each phase of life becomes nearly the opposite of that established by the generation that had once passed through it. Let's go a little bit. I'm going to go up the previous one. The awakening that we were born into. I really should have read these two paragraphs. I'm going to do it now. From the climax of World War II, shift your attention ahead roughly 40 years to the end of the next great event of the seculum, the post-war consciousness revolution. From the early 40s to the early 80s, each generation had aged by 2 phases of life. 2 generations that were earlier active, lost and missionary, had by now passed from the scene, and 2 new generations that were earlier unborn, boomers and Gen X, had now arrived. This awakening, the society-wide obsession with breaking rules, celebrating the spirit, and shedding social discipline, again defined generations, but in ways entirely unlike the earlier crisis. Back in World War II, 65-year-olds were moralist visionaries. Now, in the consciousness revolution, they were defenders of a rationalist establishment. Before, 45-year-olds were hard-scrabble midlife pragmatists. Now they were sensitive navigators of midlife passages. Again, this was in 1997, so they're one cycle off from where we are now. Before, 25-year-olds were uniformed soldiers. Now they're preachy narcissists, and the children, gone were the sheltered goody two-shoes. In their place were latchkey kids growing up hard. So yeah, it changes based on the generations. Generational aging is what translates the rhythm of the past into the rhythm of the future. It explains why each generation is not only shaped by history, but also shapes later history. It regulates the velocity of social change. It connects life and its biographical intimacy to history and its social or political grandeur. In all these ways, the generation lies at the root of the seculum. Big stuff.
Oof. Heavy duty.
I know. Now,
so we just did all, I mean, also we just did all this. We just went through a whole bunch of this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to touch on it.
Yeah.
Now we're going to go through generations, and once we get through this generation part, we're going to watch our video. Well, the generations and the archetypes. So really quick, identifying generations. And if there's anything going on in the chat, please let me know, because I'm not able to look at the chat and read the book at the same time because I'm on different screens. Let's see. Identifying generations. Here we go.
In the chat, they were just talking about embracing our ages.
Gotcha. Good deal. I just want to make sure I wanted to make sure there was no questions or any points somebody wanted to make that I moved past too quickly. All right. The lost generation, their literati never explained exactly how they identified their generation, but the question must be raised. In a world in which people are born every minute, how can social generations be located and their birth year boundaries defined? I really like this next couple of chapters because it gets into why they decided to start Generation X at 1961 instead of 1965. And this will be fun for debate. To answer it, you first have to determine the length of a generation. As the great event scenario showed, history puts a different stamp on different peer groups according to their age-determined social roles. Thus, the length of a generation in birth years should approximate the length of a phase of life in years of age. Before the early 19th century, American generations should average about 25 years in length. Since then, they should average about 21. Necessarily, these lengths can vary somewhat for each generation, depending on the vagaries of history and the precise timing of great events. To apply these lengths to real birth years, you have to locate an underlying generational persona. Every generation has one. It's a distinctly human and variable creation with attitudes about family life, gender roles, institutions, politics, religion, lifestyle, and the future. A generation can think, feel, or do anything a person might think, feel, or do. It can be safe or reckless, individualist or collegial, spiritual or secular. Like any social category, race, class, or nationality, a generation can allow plenty of individual exceptions and be fuzzy at the edges. But unlike most other categories, it possesses its own personal biography. You can tell a lifelong story about the shared experiences of the silent generation in ways you could never for all women, all Hispanics, or all Californians. The reason, to quote Ferrari, is that a generation is born, lives, and dies. It can feel nostalgia for a unique past, express urgency about a future of limited duration, and comprehend its own mortality.
I think that's such a hugely important paragraph.
Yeah.
Especially the part about how the generation itself can have its own identity and preferences and such. And yet there's still room for individual exception.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that I think people who don't particularly grasp the concept of generationology don't seem to understand that.
Yeah.
Because an individual experience is not of the norm does not either A, discount the norm, nor B, discount the individual experience.
Yeah. I think people tend to sometimes focus on the exceptions and not the rule.
Exactly.
And you can do that with politics, with culture, with anything. If you focus on the exceptions and not the rule, it can really skew how you see things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like anecdotes are great. I understand that there are exceptions to everything, every theory, every rule, every whatever. But just because there are exceptions doesn't mean you ignore the rule. And the common, just because there are exceptions in Generation X doesn't mean that we don't have a generational identity or a generational, how we do things.
Right.
But yeah, so I thought this was very interesting as far as the whole generational theory goes. Also, common location. Common location refers to where a generation finds itself at any given age against the background chronology of trends and events. Location in history gives shape to a generation. At critical moments in history, members of each generation tend to occupy a single phase of life. So right now, for example, Gen X is all in midlife, and we are in a critical moment in history. Boomers are all in elderhood. Millennials are all in rising adulthood, but they're getting ready to change. And Gen Z was in childhood. But all of that is shifting now. We are in the shift. And that's always fun. That's always a good time. We're in the shift. At any given moment in history, history inevitably touches a generation's oldest and youngest cohorts in different ways. The Vietnam War put far more pressure on boomers born in 1945 than those in 1955, for example. A little bit.
The
60s experience felt authentic enough to bind. Oh, I'm sorry. I missed a part. Yeah, your different parts of your cohort, which is what we always talk about in Gen X. If you're born in the mid 60s, your life is way different than mine. That I was born in the late 70s. So, but there's still commonalities of our generation, but our experiences, history will touch us differently depending on where you are in the cohort. Generations can be separated by exact birth dates by paying attention to what the philosopher Julian Marius defines as the social cartography of successive cohorts. I want to get down. Oh, yeah. In this analogy, he suggested each generation would be the area between two mountain chains. And in order to determine whether a certain point belonged to one or the other, it would be necessary to know the relief. Sometimes the watershed is obvious, sometimes subtle. Occasionally, even a split second can be decisive in binding and separating adjacent generations. In contemporary America, a 1-minute delay in birth can mean the difference between kindergarten and first grade 6 years later. Down the road, depending on the conscription laws, that can mean the difference between gliding through college just ahead of a controversial war or belonging to a class that feels real pressure from a wartime draft. A 1-minute difference did, in fact, separate the newborn babies of December 31st, 1942 from those of January 1st, 1943, a critical tick of the clock that later helped ignite the fiery college class of 1965 and create a lasting cohort boundary between the silent and boomers. I thought that was very, very interesting. Like, the exact dates aren't that big of a deal because the edges are blurry, but sometimes the exact dates are a huge deal because, just like something that's not wartime related, we were able to vote and smoke at 18. But Gen Z has to wait till they're 21. And depending on where they were born, they got caught in that age change. Or the draft, wherever the draft is, or when the voting laws change. Like, you can get caught in these age things that change society, and depending on their birth date will depend on how it affects you, if that makes any sense. Does it make sense what I'm trying to say?
Yep. I get you.
Yeah. Let me get down to the thing about Generation X. Let's see. To apply lengths to real birth years, I'm just going to read from my book for a minute instead of from the screen, because I got stuff highlighted. To apply lengths to real birth years, you have to locate an underlying generational persona. Every generation has one. We already talked about that. Common location. Here we go. Common beliefs and behavior of a generation show its members to be different from people born at another time. They are the means by which a generation moves history. Common beliefs and behavior. Common perceived membership refers to how a generation defines itself and to a popular consensus about which birth cohorts belong together. Perceived membership gives a generation a sense of destiny. Here's where I wanted to get to. I'm going to bring it back up. I lied. Got to bring it back up. Perceived membership. So common perceived membership of a generation. Perceived membership confirms what many pollsters have long suspected about boomers, that their true boundaries, which Strauss and Howe believe is 1943 to 1960, are located a few years earlier than the fertility bulge between 1946 and 1964, often used by demographers to define this generation. This is interesting. This is how they decided where they're going to cut off Gen X and boomers. Ask some people born between 1943 and 1945 whether they've always thought of themselves as boomers. Chances are they'll say yes. Ask the same question of people born between 1961 and 1964. Chances are they'll say more emphatically no. The term Generation X was a self-label first popularized by young literati born between 1961 and 1964, and its central purpose was to deny boomer membership.
Yeah. So Gen X exists because we don't want to be boomers.
Exactly.
And I think that's really what it boils down to. I mean, it really, a lot of times, I think it does boil down to, where do you perceive yourself?
Right.
Especially if you are on the cusp, which is obviously where those dates are. 1943 to 45 is on the cusp of the 1946, 45, 46 accepted.
Yeah.
I tend to think that 1943 number is not a bad, not really a bad idea. They are still the children of GIs for the most part. They're GIs that have come home for some reason,
right?
Or people who didn't get to go, or who couldn't go.
People that don't remember the babies born in 43 and 44 and don't remember World War II.
Right. They have no, they don't remember it at all. And all they remember is post World War II. Right. And their childhood, more importantly, is so similar to their peers of just a couple of years later. I don't think there is that much difference between the, birth years. What did you do during the war, Dad? Like,
right.
Baby, who cares?
And honestly, I'm interested to see how many kids were actually born in 43 and 44 while all the men were off fighting a war.
Yeah, those kids were actually a lot of in England, Generation X actually did refer to the children of those who were born during the war.
Yeah. So this is really interesting to me, and it really hit me because Douglas Copeland wrote the book Generation X, Tales of an Accelerated Culture, which came out in 1990. And that was kind of where the whole idea of Generation X post-boomer became a thing. And Douglas Copeland was born in 1961. So he would be considered a boomer now among the Pew Research of the world, but in Strauss and Howe theory, he is the first Gen Xer. I really don't like ignoring 1961 to 1964. I really think that they are part of Generation X. Not all of them. There are exceptions.
Yeah.
But
I think it also depends on your behavior and your self-identification, you know?
Yeah.
Isn't Obama was 61, right?
Yeah.
So
and I would call him a boomer
he is a
long,
boomer.
twice on Sunday.
Absolutely. True and true. He is a boomer.
Yeah.
No doubt about it, to my knowledge.
Yeah. But I really hate leaving out early 60s babies because I think, you know, people are always like, somebody born in, because Strauss and Howe, for those of you that don't know, Generation X is defined as 1961 to 1981, not the 1965 to 1980. And people always come at me like, how can somebody born in 1961 have anything in common with 1981 babies? And it's like, well, it's not about having necessarily everything in common. It's about age, location, and history. And yes, your oldest of the cohort and the youngest of the cohort are going to be very different.
Yes,
but that doesn't mean they weren't born in that same, you know, era of history. So I really like the 61 to 81 definition. And I think that is, I think it has more, but also I'm a big fan of the whole idea of Zennials from 76 to 85, like having this cohort, because I could say as a 1997 baby, 77 baby, I have more in common with somebody born in 1982 than I do with somebody born in 1963. So, you know, I don't know. It's a big discussion, but
there's always within a cohort, there's micro cohorts. And that's what a Zennial is. That's what a Gen Jones is. That's that whole term.
It's the bridge. It's the bridge cohort.
That's a micro cohort. Just like core Gen X is a micro cohort. It's those of us who are in Gen X who are born right smack in the middle, and we don't have any relation to the either up or down the generation ladder. That's core Gen X. It's a micro generation. It's a micro cohort within the macro cohort within the generation.
Right.
Or we should, you know, we use cohort as also a synonym for generation. What we should do is use cohort as that group within the generation.
Agreed. You know, it's kind of like breaking down how they break down the seculum and the human life cycle into generations. Well, you can break your generations down into your smaller cohorts.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's basically 3 cohorts in each generation.
Right.
There is your early, your mid, and your late. And your mid and your early and your late both have the cusp on either side added to their cohorts, which generally gives people a better sense of belonging, because it's better to say, you know, I'm not necessarily a member of your whole generation. I'm a member of this sub-generation.
Right.
Makes you feel like you belong to a more specialized group. It gives you a little bit more of an individual identity. I especially find it with Gen Jones. Zennial, I think, is up and coming. Especially as there's a hell of a lot more of you guys than there are core and early Gen X. But at the same time, I see a lot of hand-wringing from Gen Jones who have a lot of I don't want to be a boomer, but I'm not a Gen X either.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I see that too.
I want to be my own generation that isn't either. And it's like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
You really aren't. You are part of, you know, you are part of a generation. You don't get to be your own little micro.
Right. Absolutely. You
can have, I'll give you a cohort. I'll give you a Generation Jones that is a cohort within a larger generation.
100%.
But the bottom line is you're still part of either Gen X or the boomer.
Yep. And as Reprimanda says, the bottom line is that Gen X is by far the coolest generation. So everyone wants to get on board. But guess what? They need to pass inspection first.
They do. Well, either that or we just don't give a crap and let everybody in.
Right.
Not that necessarily. Some of us try to be gatekeepers, but most of us don't give a shit, right?
Yeah. I know you can come in and join us until you give us a reason for us to kick you out.
Right. Yeah. You know what? That's exactly it. Everybody's welcome to the party, but you got to behave. Otherwise, you're going to be shoved the door.
Exactly.
That should be our fucking mantra. That should be Gen X mantra #1. You're all welcome to be Gen X, but just don't act like a fool or else.
Yeah. All right, let's go over the generational panorama and the cohorts, or the the archetypes, and then we'll get to the video. Look at me, an hour and a half in, and we're almost through the 2 chapters. I'm doing big things. And
Gen X now.
Say that again.
At least they're starting to call us Generation X now.
Yeah, we didn't have the name in Generations, which is kind of funny. In 1992, when news weeklies and TV ads suddenly began to focus on Generation X, the American popular culture broke a long silence on the question of whether any new youth had arrived. A silence that had lasted since the end of the Vietnam War. Through 2 whole decades, no one had given the question much thought because no new generation seemed to be rising. But then in the 1990s, the topic was back in the news. So has it always been. Roughly once every 20 years, America discovers a new generation, a happenstance triggered by some striking event in which young people appear to behave in ways manifestly different than the youth who came just before. The problem is that ours only lasted 10 years. They discovered us in 1992, and by 2001 they were like millennials. So we didn't get any recognition in the 80s when we were actually there. They didn't.
And the millennials got their fair share of freaking attention too.
Yeah, they did.
Still kind of getting it. No one really talks about Gen Z or Gen Alpha yet.
No. Gen Z is definitely starting to get their talk, their comeuppance. We're definitely, Gen Z is starting to arrive because Gen Z is moving from youth to rising adulthood.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Let's get to if you got your book with you.
I can see that, Cindy. Purple Rain's a kind of a difficult movie in the first place.
It is a lot of stuff from the 80s. It's like, it's hard to show kids. It's like you had to be there. Like it's hard to, if you don't get the context of the time.
Yeah.
It's really hard to pass some of our stuff on to the younger generations.
Yeah.
Now, some of our music is not like that, but some of it is.
Purple Rain is it's tough because there's a lot in that movie. Especially, I wouldn't have shown it to a teenager. I watched it as a teenager. I wouldn't.
It's a tough one. It's like sometimes I'll watch. Sometimes I will watch a young person react to like an 80s movie or 80s music or whatever. And I can tell it's like, they don't hate it, but it's like, they just don't get it. You know, it's like, and if you weren't there, you're not, some things are timeless, like Back to the Future and stuff like that's timeless, but there's some stuff that just, you had to be there. You just had to be there. Totally.
Well, your mileage may vary on that movie in the first place.
Yeah.
I was never a fan myself. Ever.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, God. I thought it was trite BS from the start. And it's really, the book is so.
Yeah, the author hated the movie.
It's only half the book, too.
That's what was the big thing about it. But yeah, that, it was made for 8-year-olds. So you were way too old for it.
I hate to say this, but Quicksand, don't do that. Don't.
Well,
BS. He would not have. Never mind. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan, even though it had Battlestar Galactica's Boxy in it. Still not a fan. Didn't see it when it came out. Finally saw it as an adult. Was like, I don't get it.
Yeah, and that's okay.
There's stuff like that.
I'm not
a fan of BT either.
There's stuff that's just going to be for your generation, and the kids aren't going to get it, and that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, but even with the popular stuff in your generation, you don't always have to like.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like I said, I can't stand ET, but that happens to be because I was forced to see it 3 times in 1982, and I wanted to watch the movie. They wouldn't let me go see Blade Runner. I was like, no, I want to go see Blade Runner. They're like, no, you have to go see ET with your cousin. I don't want to see ET for the 3rd time. It's rated R. I don't care. Mom doesn't care. We see History of the World last year. It was rated R.
All right. You're funny. Okay, let's get into the different archetypes.
Yay.
So this is a big one, guys. Learn your archetypes, know your archetypes, because this will make the book much better of an experience. And if you really want to, we're just going to kind of go over the basics, but this chapter really dives into what makes an archetype, and it goes into the history of it. We're not going to do all that.
And then you read Joseph Campbell's The Hero with 1,000 Faces.
Yeah.
Okay. Read that. And you'll be ready to be an English major.
Yes. All right. As we go through this, we're going to talk about who are the current archetypes in our current, what do they call it?
Cycle.
And our current cycle with our 4 generations, our current mix of generations. We have the boomers are a prophet generation. They grow up as increasingly indulged post-crisis children, come of age as the narcissistic young crusaders of an awakening, cultivate principle as moralistic midlifers, and emerge as wise elders guiding the next crisis. Their wisdom, unfortunately, is waning in a lot of ways. So that would be the boomers. The nomads, that would be Generation X. A nomad generation grows up as an underprotected child during an awakening, comes of age as the alienated young adults of a post-awakening world, mellows into pragmatic midlife leaders during a crisis, and ages into tough post-crisis elders.
That's me.
Yes, that's us. A hero generation grows up. Heroes are the millennials, which is TBD. A hero generation grows up as increasingly protected post-awakening children, come of age as the heroic young team workers of a crisis, demonstrate hubris as energetic midlifers, and emerge as powerful elders attacked by the next awakening. And finally, Gen Z, an artist generation. They grow up as overprotective children during a crisis, come of age as the sensitive young adults of a post-crisis world, break free as indecisive midlife leaders during an awakening, and age into empathetic post-awakening elders. So that is the 4 archetypes that will be the basis of this theory as we go along. So right now we have the prophets are in elderhood, nomads are in midlife, the heroes are in young adulthood, and the artists are in childhood, but it's all getting ready to shift over the next few years. Yay!
Oh boy! Aren't you all excited?
Yes, and it really dives into the history of this in this chapter.
It really does.
Really dive into it.
Let's talk about the Iliad.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they do end the chapter with this line: at no other place and time in human history has the cycle of generations propelled the wheel of time with more force than in America. So, yay, yes. Yeah, we are definitely the nomads.
USA.
USA. Woo!
We're better than those Trojans.
All right. So that is chapters 2 and 3 of the Fourth Turning by Strauss and Howe. Next week, we will be going over the cycles of history and Gray Champions. So chapters 4 and 5. That will be next week. And then we're going to get into the turnings of this millennium cycle. So that'll be fun. So next week, chapters 4 and 5, that is your homework. Guys, are you ready to find out what Neil Howe has to say about Gen X in the current crisis?
Hell yeah.
All right.
Well, before we do that, are there any questions in the chat?
Oh, yeah. Before we move on to the video, anybody have any questions, comments, concerns about these two chapters? I'd love to hear your thoughts, your reactions, your agreements, your criticisms, whatever it is.
And if you want to talk about the Iliad and the Odyssey, I'm happy to, but let's do it offline. The English major in me would,
Yes.
I got to do it, but.
Yep. It's good stuff.
I am so pumped for that movie.
Oh yeah. I don't know. Anything that comes out of Hollywood, I'm always skeptical of these days, but we'll see.
I don't care. I'm just happy that they're making a movie out of it.
Well, that's true.
I have no care. I do not care about any political agenda. I just want to see a cool movie about the Odyssey.
Right.
It's it.
I like
I don't care about casting. I don't care about
Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I
love that movie.
That's the movie that I love that has to do with this.
I do love that movie. I saw
that
was a great
movie. It's a fantastic
film. Totally overshadowed by Big Lebowski.
Yeah, it did. But Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? If you want to watch something that's inspired by the Odyssey, that's a good movie. Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah. All right.
Definitely rewatch.
Now remember, this video is I think it's about 8 months old. Let me see here. I'm sorry, it is 1 year old, so it came out last spring. It is Neil Howe talking with a Gen X podcaster, so it's very Gen X focused. It's also, there's some financial focus in there as well, because Neil Howe does run an investment firm.
He's a hedge fund manager.
Yes, he's a hedge fund manager.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, if I had some money, I would actually invest with him.
I was going to say, if you're going to have a hedge fund manager, I think Neil Howe might be a good.
I would 100% trust him. And I also, if you haven't seen the show Billions, watch that show. It's really awesome. Yeah. About hedge fund managers. It's so good.
Don't leave me yet, Gemini. We're going to watch an awesome video. But thank you for hanging out. I appreciate it.
Watch the replay from this point on.
Oh yeah, awesome. Yeah, watch the replay from this point on. Absolutely. Also, real quick, for those of you that are interested in Neil Howe's current work, he has. Let's see. Let me get it switched over. He has a Substack called Demography Unplugged. It has different articles. He has a podcast. There are some free options in here, but there's also a paywall for a lot of this stuff. But you can listen to, and he basically, and again, he's still applying this generational theory to current news, current trends, current things that are happening. So if you're interested.
He'll have another book out within the decade.
Yeah.
It reveals itself. He'd be like, the fourth turning was scary.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I would love to get a book from Neil Howe about when we hit the first turning. If he's still here with us, I'd love to get his take on the post-crisis into the first turning. But so that's Neil Howe. This is the video. Let me go ahead and move over to this. And this is Neil Howe in 2025, I guess. Not 2026, 2025. And we'll pause. And if there's anything that you want me to pause on and discuss, let me know. And you're very welcome. Very welcome, Rep Amanda. Yeah, he has some great work, and all of it is very, again, it's all founded or based on his generational theory work. So here we go, guys. This is where Gen X is going to fit into the current fourth turning and into the first.
And it's always the same three things, by the way. It's basically tax, borrow, inflate. Gen Xers felt that the only way they could survive is by taking their life rafts and sailing in different directions, because the whole thing was going to sink. Millennials are roping all of their lifeboats together because they realize if the entire S&P goes down, someone's got to save them. History suggests that when society feels that it's entering its more collective mood of not wanting to take individual risk vis-a-vis others, it's more likely to take collective risks. Apple or NVIDIA or Microsoft go down by 30% or 40%. You know that Chairman Powell is going to have an emergency press conference. What people don't understand is that late in a crisis, inflation is always part of it, because inflation is not a problem in that case. It is a solution. Conflict is the incubator of community. It happens every time.
Today on Rabbit Hole, I'm joined by Neil Howe, author of Generations, The Fourth Turning. The Fourth Turning is here. You can find his work at Demography Unplugged. That's where I read it. We're not going to go deep into what generational theory is or the fourth turning. We're going to talk about the now, being the frog in the boiling water of the current crisis. Neil, thanks for joining us. Maybe just a very quick, where are we in your cycle, and how does it feel in terms of how you would expect it to have gone when you started this process 20 years ago?
I have to say, in all honesty, this is played out pretty much as we expected. I probably should say something else. This is completely not what we expected. I will say that, and again, I'm just speaking honestly from when Bill and I first started writing about this, actually in 1991, that was in our book Generations, where we first talked about, American history and by extension, much of Western history being cyclical, modern history being cyclical. We talked about a crisis of the 2020s, and it's in that book, and we foretold something that would be the way this generational cycle plays out would lead to that. Now, at that time, we up and thought about something peaking, in the year 2020 or in the early 2020s, right? And I would say the one kind of difference is that due to the lengthening of generations, the slowing of the timing of generations, that I would say we're pushing, the cycle is dilating slightly. And this has happened over time. This actually happened over the centuries. The cycle used to be a bit longer, back in the 17th and 18th century. It shortened a bit at the end of the 19th and early 20th centuries. And I think it's lengthening a bit again. And I think the reason for that is that the timing, the governor of the length of the cycle is the generational phase of life. That is to say, the time it takes from a person to be born to fully come of age as an adult, and then by extension, from being an adult, fully coming into your roles in midlife, which is sort of the leadership phase of life. And then, the elder phase of life is when you're presiding over America's, society's most highest institutions at the highest level. And I think it's fair to say that the time it takes for someone to become an adult in America has lengthened, over the last 30 years.
Hey, that's what we were just saying. We were literally just talking about that. It's lengthened. So we were right. Yay.
Yeah, yes.
Age at which
yay for us.
Someone gets married, becomes a parent, has a permanent career. I mean, all of these things are 5 to 7 years later than they used to be. The age at which people are actually being elected for political leadership has gone up about 4 or 5 years. And God knows the age at which people are presidents. I mean, it's off the charts, right? So you see what I mean? There's a dilation in phases of life, and that is actually the timing of the cycle. And I talk to a lot of people who say that technology speeds things up. It should be speeding the generational cycle up. Well, we can talk about that if you want, Dave. But I think the cycle has actually slowed down. I think the experience of young adults today is more like the no growth economic experience of living in the 17th and 18th century than it is to live in the early 20th century when economic mobility and possible full adult phases of life were available much earlier in life than they are today. I think for a lot of young adults, it's just everything is on hold for you guys. You know what I mean?
I think that feels very true. And this is exactly the part of this I wanted to get into, which was the living in its roles issue, because it's one that feels very relevant to me. I'm, I think your definition of Gen X is 65 to 80 roughly in there, which is a little bit shorter than some of the other generations that are alive right now.
It's actually, we define Xers as born in 1961 to 1981. So
okay,
those early 1960s babies, they were about, they were still preschool during Woodstock. You know what I mean?
Right. They're not boomers.
They had the throwaway upbringing of a Gen Xer.
Right.
And they were the ones who started coming of age in the early 80s with the Down with Disco and the new wave and Michael J. Fox and all that.
And that's right down the middle for me, and sort of my colleagues all sort of fit into that mix. And one thing that has been a topic of conversation amongst sort of peers, mentors, and mentees for the last 5 or 6 years was this feeling that Gen X in particular has sort of never been educated about how to move into the next phase, how to become elders, right? I mean, in your parlance, we were sort of a nomad generation, latchkey kids. And as part of that, it feels like we've missed most of the opportunities to learn what our later roles are supposed to be. Or
I love that. I love that point. What is our role? Like, what do you think?
Well, we haven't really had any great examples to follow, have we?
Right. Yeah.
You know? I mean, what are we supposed to follow the boomers into elderhood? And they're like,
right.
They were kicking and screaming, going, "I'm not old. I'm not old. I'm not old."
Right.
They were the ones dyeing their hair and having key parties, and they're the ones who are now in the old folks' home, bouncing around from STD to STD. Emulate that bullshit? No.
Yeah. Well, and being the forgotten children, the latchkey kids, the ignored generation, that was a result of being ignored, as we were never truly told how to move into these next phases of life, because the boomers have always been trying to swat us off, like get down, like go back, like you're not part of this, and so I just thought this was really a great point. That
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. Here we go.
At least historically have been useful to society.
I'm going to go back.
Do you have some thoughts?
Hold on. We go back just a few
Never been educated about how to move into the next phase, how to become elders, right? I mean, in your parlance, we were sort of a nomad generation, latchkey kids. And as part of that, it feels like we've missed most of the opportunities to learn what our later roles are supposed to be, or at least historically have been useful to society. Do you have some thoughts about sort of that shift from midlife to eldership and the gap between what we see in the baby boomer generation, which has seemed to be very reluctant to let go of a lot of leadership, and the Gen X community, which honestly feels largely listless, with the exception of some obviously very high profile, very successful Gen Xers in government and industry? Do you have any thoughts about that role transition that we're seeing in the now?
Well, I think Gen X is really an interesting phenomenon, right? And it belongs to a type of generation we call nomad generations. And these are typically raised at a time when no one really cares much about kids, right? I mean, I was talking earlier about throwaway generations. This is the generation that grew up with all the childish devil horror movies, and everything about their generation was bad and contemptible. I mean, let's face it. As soon as they came along, and I think I often say that the Gen X attitude toward themselves is a little bit like the child of divorce writ large. I mean, America was doing great until we came along, so we must be at fault. There must just
I've certainly felt that
bad seed. You remember that movie, Bad Seed? Anyway, but again, and I do think that when Gen Xers came of age, the whole attitude was most of us were doomed, and only a few of us would be lucky enough to survive, which has actually led this generation to be very much of a contrarian generation, individualistic generation. I'm only getting ahead of by being different from my peers. So they've resisted big brands. They've resisted going along with the crowd. They've been very good contrarian investors. You know, they're really good on those short funds. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm going to spread that. I'm going to, I'm going to go negative on this or that.
A lot of doomers. Yeah.
Millennials are completely different. So millennials, we got all band together. And they're all investing in target date funds.
Yeah. But that
they're
both
all investing in the S&P 500. But here's the difference. Gen Xers felt that the only way they could survive is by taking their life rafts and sailing in different directions, because the whole thing was going to sink. Millennials are roping all of their lifeboats together because they realize if the entire S&P goes down, someone's got to save them. You know what I mean? It's actually.
What do you think about that? Gen Xers all sailed in different directions, and millennials are tying their boats together. I thought that was a very interesting way of putting it.
I think he's talking about it. I mean, I definitely hear he's talking about it from a financial perspective.
Definitely.
And I don't really have much of a frame of reference other than, I don't have any. I mean, I've had, the ability to be an investor at some point, but I don't currently. So.
Right. But you could even go into jobs and not just investing, but we weren't the generation that flocked to big corporations and all worked our way up through a business. So we were out doing gig work before gig work was even a thing. We were, and McJobs and all that stuff. So we've always gone our own way, and we don't necessarily do what our peer is doing. We want to do something different in order to survive. So we're definitely a generation that does our own. We're very individualistic.
I think that's really, the point that he's trying to make here is that we're an individualistic generation, whereas the millennials are more of a collective, generation. And that's to be expected because, again, it's that ebb and flow of, the yin and yang of the two generations. And which is you can't really say either is a better option.
No, it's just it's our generational identity. It's how we've done things. It's our peer group, and again there are exceptions, but these are kind of the rules of the different generations and how they're approaching life and approaching things. We've definitely gone. We're the nomads. We're the ones that, we don't really set down roots in places and stay for a long time. We tend to move from place to place and job to job and do things on our own. So anyways, I thought that was a very interesting point.
Very salient.
Yeah. Pretty clever. And I think they're right, actually.
Hold on.
But it's a very different.
I think he said the millennials were right.
Right. That's the thing. I'm like, I think he did say they were right.
Yep.
Because they realize if the entire S&P goes down, someone's got to save them. You know what I mean? It's actually pretty clever, and I think they're right, actually.
Yeah.
But it's a very different collective self-identification. And I do think for Gen X, the whole problem of maturing is how do you get a mature role as a leader of institutions, as a cornerstone of the community, when you've grown up thinking that you were past the end of history, and not only did no one care about you, but the world would be better off if you just didn't take part. And
you went mute. Can't hear you. You're muted, Natalie.
Sorry. That was a great point. Like, how do you take over as a generation and become leaders when your whole life has been about like just being ignored and not even listened to? It's like, how do you do that? So
we're going to get skipped.
Yeah. Or let's listen to what he has to say.
I know a lot of Xers, and this is one of the reasons why they had this very libertarian and very often overtly sort of, counter hippie or counter culture image. I raised Michael J. Fox earlier as an example of this generation in the early 80s. But this generation has always leaned more Republican all of their life in every election than the electorate as a whole. And now this generation is the number one MAGA generation. They voted more for Trump than any other generation,
It's
right?
true.
So they deem themselves to be beyond democracy, beyond all this idealistic crap. We're in this world of survival. And maybe from time to time, we need a strong man to come in, cut corners and kick heads, right? But I do think there's also this issue of, so who's going to take care of, the little platoon, my family, my community. And many of this generation are raising their own kids the opposite of how they were raised, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is raised with Judy Blume, the silent generation, just expose your kids to everything and leave them at home and let them find out everything for themselves. That way they'll be better inoculated for how horrible the world really is. And Gen Xers are raising their kids and have raised their kids. Many of them are getting older now. Many of them are obviously in their 20s and so on, getting older, but they are raising their kids extremely protectively. And we have seen this pattern generationally time and time again. The last generation we saw that was like Gen X was the lost generation, right? Of F. Scott Fitzgerald and George Patton and Dwight Eisenhower. And, they were the ones who were the doughboys that got mowed down during World War I, a war that everyone hated and thought was pointless, right? And they came home to no victory tape parades for them very much. They came home to the Spanish flu and America thinking that our involvement in Europe or anything was
and then eventually into the Great Depression. Yeah.
And eventually their peak years were in the Great Depression. And they too, though, as parents, I mean, you can look at Harry Truman, look at Hemingway in his letters to his daughter, look at Fitzgerald in his letters to his daughter. They were incredibly protective, right? And they were also very much a generation of pragmatists. You know what I mean? Anti-idealists, just deal with the situation, right?
What's right in front of you, which feels very true. Again, as a midlife Gen Xer with my kids in their 20s, I mean, I'm pretty much the stereotype you're talking about. That feels very real. And when I look around sort of the community of folks that I know broadly, that feels very real. But this next transition, right? We've raised our kids, we've gotten them out there, whether we overprotect them or not, whether they're successful or not, whatever we did, we all had our path because we're all humans. Now we're sitting here, maybe we're in a business, maybe we're in politics, but more likely we're sort of late career, 50s, 60s folks who are now increasingly being looked to be elders for the millennials and the Zoomers coming up behind us, to impart wisdom, to do all these things we expect elders to do. But to your point, as nomads, we haven't necessarily leaned into those kinds of responsibilities throughout our lives. How does this play out? I mean, if you look back at the lost generation, what did their eldership look like? And can we learn anything about sort of graduating into eldership as a Gen Xer from them?
Well, what they did was they were thrown into a world which seemed to be falling to pieces, right? I mean, this is a generation that reached midlife at a time of both the Great Depression, when nothing seemed to work economically, like unemployment double digits, GDP cratering, and also huge transitions, enormous volatility in the markets. I mean, the America came back in 1935, 36, and then went to this huge vertiginous slide again in 37, a 50% decline in the stock market. It wasn't just downs, it was up and downs, it was roller coaster, right? And enormous political transition, of course. This was one of the great realigning series of elections, 1932, 34, and 36.
Which feels pretty real now. Yeah.
Another series of realigning elections. In fact, I will tell you that many people are calling, 2016 through 2024 to be America's, seventh great realigning election period. We've had them in every crisis and every awakening on cue, since the 1790s. So this is right on schedule, right? I mean, the big transition this time is, working class kind of moving Republican and educated and professional moving to the Democrats, right? So, but it's completely changing politics. And I think the enormous pragmatism of the honey badger style of the Trump presidency just rip everything apart, try everything, smash things against the wall, see what works, right? This is kind of the soul of pragmatism. Forget about what you've learned. They don't teach you how to govern the Trump presidency in graduate school. You know what I mean? It's not there at Wharton, you know? And so this is the style. And when I look at those signal chats, you know what I mean? With JD Vance and Pete Hegseth, you know, Europeans, they're just pathetic. You know what I mean? And it's all like in caps, pathetic. This is Gen X as America's leaders. Get used to it.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
That unfortunately,
no longer the respectable man with the respectable language, the multisyllabic phrases, right? No. This is shoot from the hip, say exactly what you think. And if it doesn't work, I'll try something else.
What do we think about that, everyone? If that doesn't work, try something else. I thought that was a very interesting take on just, we're so used to the politician of our childhood of the 80s, 90s, and aughts. These politicians, when you know they're a politician, they're on screen saying, you know, their political things, and they're saying that they've got a very curated message and how they say things, but that kind of whole thing has been obliterated in the last 3 or 4 election cycles, with social media becoming a thing, and the way campaigns are run, the way politicians communicate to their constituents. Do you think that Gen X will be more like that as we go on the next few years? That it's just going to be like, we're going to break everything and figure out what works, and we're going to be pragmatic about it. And what do y'all think?
I want to be optimistic and say, God, I hope so. I hope so. Sadly, I don't really have that much faith in our current Gen X leadership, whatever that looks like. So I'm not sure, because I'm not sure we have any leadership at this point.
Now, say for hypothetically, if the current Gen X leadership that was in Washington was on your side politically, do you think you would see things differently?
Well, I think it would depend on what they're saying, you know, and what they're doing. I can't take a hypothetical because I have no idea how they're actually going to govern, because they aren't in government right now.
Well, but if they were, if say the Democrats were in power right now, or the left side of the political spectrum were in power, and they were taking this same approach,
if they were saying the same things as what he just quoted, our vice president and our secretary of defense said, if that was said by somebody who is a Democrat, I would say the same exact thing. I don't have faith in your leadership.
Gotcha.
Okay.
But it's a style. I mean, again, we're talking about leadership styles. We're not talking about necessarily about about their opinions. But
I don't think we have any leaderships right now. That's the thing. I don't think we have our shit together as a generation at the moment.
Gotcha. And does anybody? Yeah.
Hopefully that's going to change. I think Boomers still got it together because they're still collaborating. They're still talking. They're still, you know, they're still running it because they want to run it, and they're collaborating together to keep themselves on top.
I know.
All of them are.
Yeah. Most
all of them in our leadership at that level, you know, not either side, both sides at that point, you know, that are still those boomers are fucking it up for everybody.
That is true. All right, let's keep going.
You're on the right or the left. You a boomer, you fucking it up. No. We love boomers. I love my mommy.
Same. I do too.
Yeah, I see that on the national stage, right?
Sorry. I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off.
She never watches this.
Oh,
Mom, no. This, you have to tell me.
I guess she doesn't want to watch boomer bashing for an hour.
3 hours at this point, yeah.
Right.
That's been very easy to see. Part of the reason I loved The Fourth Turning is here so much is because it did put the pin in a lot of these things in a way that just sort of made you go, aha. But in that context, you also talk about sort of the scenarios that we have for how we get out of this over the next 4 to 10 years or whatever it is. And you sort of effectively point to 3 outcomes off the top of my head. One is we have effectively a form of civil war, whether it's guns in the streets or just even more, disruption than we've had already, or we have some sort of external crisis, which, maybe we're in the middle of that one. It's always hard to know while you're in the middle of it. Or we end up with sort of an internal realigning that sort of, I think you would call it a second regeneracy, where we sort of rebuild some institutions, we allow a few things to die and work from the ashes, but we're not done yet.
It's a little bit more decisive than that.
Okay.
Right.
I want that third one.
The next
Say
regeneration.
that again.
I want that third one.
Yeah, well, he's getting ready to tell you. Here we go.
Well, he's getting ready to tell us
whether-
it's going to happen.
Hold on.
Which, maybe we're in the middle of that one. It's always hard to know while you're in the middle of it. Or we end up with sort of an internal realigning that sort of, I think you would call it a second regeneracy, where we sort of rebuild some institutions, we allow a few things to die and work from the ashes, but we're not done yet.
It's a little bit more decisive than that.
Okay.
Right. The next regeneracy, whether we have 2 regeneracies, 3 regeneracies, ultimately leads to a consolidation. When the country feels that its very fate is at stake, right? When the dissolution of everything we stand for seems to be in the balance, right? Whether or not we survive or fall, either to a foreign invasion or dissolution from within, right? That's the consolidation. We haven't reached that yet.
Right.
But I'm saying this is still there in the near future, right? And that ultimately that leads to the crisis.
Right.
And then after the crisis, you finally have the conclusion when all the treaties are signed and, all the institutions are chopped off. It's basically we had in 1946 when suddenly not just, the UN, but the IMF and Bretton Woods and the World Bank and
rebuild everything.
And NATO. Suddenly you had, and at that time, all the cement, which was very fluid when all these huge institutions were being constructed, suddenly begins to harden. You know what I mean? And then you have, 2.5 decades of the American high, which was this period of incredible institutional stability, albeit a time when the world was rapidly changing, but America felt master of its fate, right? Individualism was not highly prized, but Americans felt like they were more than the sum of their parts.
Right.
They felt individually perhaps not terribly powerful, but that was okay because collectively they strode the world. You know what I mean? And that was from Truman, through Eisenhower, through Kennedy, then got kind of going in, things began to fall apart in LBJ, right? That's when he entered that's when he entered the awakening. But that's how America felt, which is very characteristic of a first turning. And at that point, Gen X is the senior leaders. You know what I mean? Right. Where at that time, the lost generation was the senior leadership generation. And of course, increasingly you had this pushy, aggressive, very ambitious GI generation who wanted to do much bolder things with government, right?
Is it the nomads? Is it the Gen Xers or the lost generation that ultimately sort of rebuild, instantiate, and give authority to the new institutions? Or does that happen behind us? Is that the millennials that show up as the heroes to rebuild?
The millennials behind you, by the time they reach senior leadership positions, they take all the stuff that you've built, right? Rendered secure, rendered, the revolution of common sense has finally, run its full course. And then you suddenly have these new, secure, but still young institutions that nonetheless, you as leaders don't want to be too risky with them. You understand what risk is all about. I always say Generation X knows about risk better than any other generation. They were suckled on risk, right?
Duck and cover, man.
Millennials are terrified at risk, right? I mean, that's the difference, right? But Dwight Eisenhower was a very risk-averse president, and I think very much in the style of his generation. He wanted to make sure the Soviets were in their place. But he did not want to do anything adventurous. He did not want to start new wars. He wanted, right? And it worked. And over that period, America suddenly became more prosperous, and we suddenly gathered momentum. But the next generation, the GI generation, as Jack Kennedy liked to say, they wanted to take longer strides, right? And they wanted a great society, as LBJ said. Those dreams of FDR had been put on hold by these lost generation presidents, who, let's face it, many of them were Republican. It was like Dwight Eisenhower. Yeah, we had to come to terms with Social Security, but that's it. Don't want to do it. You know what I mean? But no, this new generation wanted new things, right? It wanted a great society. It thought we could have guns and butter. We could fight wars in Southeast Asia and bring the final fruition of what FDR started, right? Another New Deal. And we could go to the moon, and you know what I mean? We could do lots of stuff. And maybe at the same time, let kids explore their inner world. Oh, yeah, that'll turn out just great.
Right. So what I got from that was that Gen X is going to be the leaders as everything gets burned down and then the new stuff starts. And then, but we're not going to be very risky with it. We're going to be very pragmatic about it. And then what we rebuild, the millennials will take over and build it bigger. That's what I got that.
And take credit for.
And take credit for it.
And we won't be able to lead very long. They'll take over. And,
yeah, it'll be very brief.
Yeah.
But
push us out the door and
yeah.
Let us all go live in our refurbished malls.
Yes. Woo! But yeah, I think the 30s are going to be the decade of Gen X leadership. But that's probably about it.
Roaring 30s.
Yeah, the roaring 30s.
30s are going to be Gen X's time. Woo-hoo!
Yay! Woo!
Oh God, I'm going to be
So at Woodstock, you had helicopters ferrying bottled water and ferrying food to these kids. I mean, who knows? They may know something we don't know. You know what I mean?
Right.
There was no sense of caution in that generation when it came to big collective risk. Individually, they were very risk averse, I think, like millennials. And if history does have one lesson, it's that as we grow individually more risk averse, we often grow collectively more likely to take risks. And
that was interesting.
Yeah.
As we become more risk averse as individuals, we become more risky, risk taking as collectives.
Yeah, I think that's a given in human nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just never really thought about it, but yeah, I think you're right.
And that's something very interesting to think about in the context of the fourth turning. Individually, we've become much more a society that wants to be sheltered. You know what I mean? We want safety nets. We want someone to look after us. Everyone talks about the Fed put, the Trump put on the market. Believe me, if we had another thing like if we had another crash like the GFC, I mean, we'd have feds just start replacing everyone's paycheck, just like we did in COVID. I think actually the circuit breaker now for misery is set at a very light point. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I do think, despite what Trump says about, and I think he's pretty smart to say it, I don't mind having a recession early in my presidency. I'll be like Ronald Reagan, be mourning America by the time it ends. That's just smart. I mean, that's what he should be saying, right? But nonetheless, I think that the collective backstop is big for us. And what I'm saying is that history suggests that when society feels that it's entering its more collective mood of not wanting to take individual risk vis-a-vis others, it's more likely to take collective risk, right? Our entire society risking going this way or that, to make sure that we become something new, something different, something safer as a group. And I see that as a historical pattern, by the way.
Where does individual financial risk taking fit into that? Because certainly one of the stories of the last 5 or 6 years has been.
We can skip over the the individual investment stuff.
Probably
unless you guys really want to listen to it.
Yeah.
It's not very long.
You got no money to invest. Jeez.
Increasing role of government and finance, et cetera. The increasing use of private markets versus publicly regulated markets. Do those naturally follow a pattern along with everything else? I mean, do you see the first turning, the next awakening, foundationally changing sort of American democratic market capitalism? Or do you think that those are sort of too foundational to the way we do things now? And what we're really talking about is a lot of the economic stuff, policy for this tax or that tax, that kind of stuff.
Well, I do think that as the crisis intensifies, it doesn't matter whether it's internal or external. It doesn't really matter what it is. That what you go to is toward public mobilization of resources against whatever dangers out there. And at that point, then markets start getting harnessed to what society needs to do. And what do you need to do when you aren't as public? I'll tell you, there are three things. And it's always the same three things, by the way. It's basically tax, borrow, inflate. And you tax where you can, but of course you can't suddenly tax everyone for everything. You get people to invest in the future, that's the bond drives. And then you inflate. And what people
I think to clear this up, he's talking about how do you pull together your country's resources to go towards the path that you've collectively decided to go. Because at some point we will collectively choose a path forward to go through the crisis and to the first turning. So how do governments, I guess, rein in all their resources to do all of this? And he's saying their tax, inflate, and what was the other thing? I forget. But anyway, which is an interesting question. How do you, as a country, use your resources to get through the turnings? And it's an interesting with our economic policies that we have in our country.
People don't understand is that late in a crisis, inflation is always part of it, because inflation is not a problem in that case. It is a solution. It's a burden sharing device.
Right.
You take from all the creditors who have nominally, denominated assets. You basically say, we're asking a lot of other people who don't have your wealth. This is what you're going to do. We're going to take that real wealth from you, and we're going to do it through inflation. And that was done through World War II in the late 40s. And if you look at why, and not just America, but most of the Western world became more equal, during the 30s, more rapidly during the 40s, and then the first turning, the American eye, the 50s and 60s, a lot of it was a combination of inflation, crisis, actually taking away people's wealth. Obviously, there's also just destruction,
Right.
and rapid economic restructuring in industries, and also financial repression. And here I want to get to something that should be on the minds of all investors, right? Financial repression is not just enough to say, yeah, we're going to have an inflation rate of 12%, even though your bond is only getting 4.5%, which was the case during World War II. But we're going to force you not to sell that bond. In fact, we're going to require you to buy more of them if you're a bank or if you're various financial institutions. This is called financial repression. And this we are going to have. We always do. It's what they did during the Civil War. Samuel Chase actually distributed the greenbacks to pay for the war. He set up all these new federal banks, and they were required to take greenbacks, and they're required to take U.S. debt to issue the greenback. I mean, in other words, this is what happens. Everything starts to be harnessed around these, the community's desire to survive and overcome whatever adversity it faces. And a lot of the stuff you described, betting on AMC and all the crypto stuff and everything, that falls by the wayside. I mean, obviously, the overall stock indices revalue, and in his own weird way, you could say this is this is part of Hegel's cunning of history. Donald Trump is getting us used to that. You know what I mean? He's getting used to extraordinary volatility in markets. And he's getting used to, I don't know, even the craziest stuff when he says, we'll only have $2 for Christmas. There's this, Donnie $2, there he is, getting us used to it, coming down, right? But I'm thinking, I'll say one thing about Trump that is probably accurate, what he accurately foresees, and is that Trump, however blunt-edged and chaotic his instruments for affecting it, he's often very prescient at seeing where the country's going, right? I thought in 2016, he was one of the few people who foresaw that globalization was going to reverse, right? And indeed it was. And that America culturally would be shifting direction, in a more conservative direction. And I think we've seen that actually in the last few years. We certainly see among, younger people now coming of age. So I see a lot of these things he saw. I think by and large, the whole idea that America will be, a number of years from now, who knows how long it's going to take, is a nation that's going to have much higher net exports and a much higher net savings rate. However wrenching that transition is, we may be facing much higher prices for certain goods. We may have certain goods just not there on the shelves. This whole idea of reindustrializing America, at least part of America, parts of some industries reindustrialized, is going to be enormous, painful, difficult process. Not going to be just a few months. It's not even a few years. It'll take maybe a decade. It'll go way on into the next first turning.
That's an interesting point. I'm talking about how our economy is going to change, like how people's jobs are going to change, what industries are going to be here and not. I mean, we've for most of Gen X lives, we've been a consumption society, a consumer society, because all the manufacturing moved out, when we were growing up, right? But how do you, moving forward as a country, when you're trying to employ people, when you're trying to, build and innovate in your country, how do you do that? How do you shift an economy that's a consumer economy into something different and in a different world? And I think those are questions that we as a country have to think about and it's probably gonna be pretty painful to kind of totally switch your economy to something completely different. Soft times create hard times. Yeah. I mean, it's just, according to the voting patterns, they tend to be more on the right side of the political spectrum, but we're pretty, I don't know. I think it's probably very divided up between rural and urban more than conservative and liberal. Would that be a fair would that be a fair assessment, do you think?
I don't know. I think we are definitely more conservative than liberal.
Yeah. But I think there's a lot of
I don't know how much. I mean, there's a fairly large spectrum on both sides of the line of how hardcore liberal and how hardcore.
Yeah, we definitely have a large spectrum of ideas, and I think it definitely splits between rural and urban in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. Just because life is just so different from those two different, living and working in a small town in the middle of the country is a way different experience than living on the West Coast in a large city. And so, your outlooks on life are going to be very different.
Or the East Coast in a large city.
Yeah, well. Right. Yeah.
Living on the coast. Yeah, no, living on the coast, you're definitely tending to be living on the coast and living in fairly large urban areas. Your Chicago's, your San Francisco's, Los Angeles, New York, all very liberal leaning cities.
Yeah.
And they are the largest cities in America.
Yeah.
outside of Texas and the Midwestern large cities, besides Illinois, besides Chicago, that's where you have your centralization of conservatism.
Right.
But so numbers wise, though, because it balances out.
Right.
Because there's far more people on the coast than there are living in the west, in the rural. There's far more people in urban areas than there are in rural areas.
Sure.
Far more.
Right. But yeah, as a generation, according to our voting patterns, we're definitely more on the right side, a little more conservative.
But you have to realize that if you are going to shut down imports and exports, you're also going to shut down capital inflows and exflows, right? That means we're going to have to fund our entire deficit on our own, which we haven't done for the last 20 years. That's going to lead to much higher interest rates, totally aside from the inflation premium on it. And it suddenly means we're going to have to do something about the deficit. We're
going to have to do something about those things. Like that's our generation is going to get stuck with this deficit stuff and funding all of these things. It's like we're gonna have to make all the hard decisions that the boomers have pushed off for decades. Like, all right, are we gonna keep doing this? Are we gonna stop this? Are we gonna totally nuke this and change this? We're the ones that we're gonna get stuck with the tough decisions, even on this big scale. Are the people that we elect. Gen X elects is going to be, the people that make these decisions, and it's wild to think about that it's on us. It's our turn, from even if it's only for a few years.
All of these things kind of follows like A follows B follows C. If you're not going to have the rest of the flip side of our trade deficit is foreign capital inflows, and if you're not going to have one, you're not going to have the other. And it's interesting. I often feel that it is, so long as Trump is willing to say that we should suffer some pain now to get some gain later. I often wonder, instead of all this tariff stuff, why not just start cutting the deficit? I mean, really, it's not this Doge idiocy, right? Which isn't doing anything. I mean, he's basically firing people who administer Social Security benefits. What about Gen Xers, by the way?
Oh yeah, back to Gen X.
And at that time, you can. That time, you can renegotiate it, and it'll be up to Gen Xers who say, "Oh yeah, no problem,
yes or no."
You know what I mean? No problem. I got it. I'll do it. Just give me 15 minutes. I'll give her the number. This is what I love about Gen Xers, by the way. They're unweighed by all the bullshit. It's just, yeah, you're right. I see it. The bottom line. I'll give you the numbers in 15 minutes. And that's that's fair. You commented recently in some of your appearances about sort of how the sort of seculum, the cycle, seems to be sinking more and more globally as we become a more global society. You talked about sort of Israel perhaps being right in the culmination of their crisis at the moment. If that's true, if we project that forward and we say, okay, we should be expecting similar patterns elsewhere, certainly in the culturally common world. Is there some risk that effectively somebody gets there before us and builds institutions that we find preferable to those we might build ourselves?
Interesting question. That's a good question, Gemini Gypsy. I've often thought my whole life that I wasn't going to be able to get Social Security. I just felt like it wasn't going to be there by the time I got to my 60s. We might end up being the generation that has to make really hard choices about that crap. Because our money, I don't know. Between our deficits and the amount of spending that we do, I mean, I don't know how this plays out. This scares me, to be honest with you, a little bit. But it's not anytime you even want to touch the idea of changing Social Security or doing anything with Social Security, it's like a political bloodbath. So, but we're going to end up being the Generation X. Generation X is going to be the one that has to deal with it ultimately. They're already cutting back in 2034. I think is the first year they're cutting it down to 70% of the current payouts. So we're going to end up being the generation that has to do all this crap. It sucks.
Well, that's an interesting question. And by the way, when you say sinking, you mean S-Y-N-C.
S-Y, yes,
Yes.
S-Y-N-C, not S-I-N-K.
So I think the answer is obviously yes. I mean, look around the world. I mean, I'll just start at random, right? Look at Vladimir Putin, who's completely rebuilding Russia around this militarized anti-Western state. I mean, he's building a war machine, and suddenly in Russia, instead of the army being this horrible place where uneducated refuse goes, it's the time for heroes. You know what I mean? He's giving these huge benefits now to veterans. He's lifting the incomes of these rural communities, and so there's this huge recasting going on. And the idea of some people in the White House that, Trump can be suddenly brought over to the West or distracted from Ukraine, I think is idiocy.
Yeah, we don't need to get into the specific global issues, but but I agree, Gemini Gypsy. I think this could be what our generation does, like do something like this to where we like change the system to where it's like your own account instead of the system that's currently there. I don't think we'd ever get rid of it, but I can see us like changing it dramatically. I think that makes sense. I know. And we've worked and paid in all of our lives. I know. It's rough. All right.
Which is kind of always true, right?
And that's always true. That's the amazing thing about the saeculum, right? Is the era we're entering is exactly the era that no one any longer remembers.
Right.
And it's interesting because recently we've seen all these 80-year anniversaries. It's 80-year anniversary of BE Day. I believe that was 2 days ago, right? And there you had, Hitler's, I don't know, in a few days, Hitler's going to shoot himself in the head, in his bunker and all this stuff. Eisenhower sends his victory telegram, just like an Xer. The victory telegram was only about 15 words. That was it. The Allied forces have accomplished their objective at something 100. That was boom. That was it. That's all Eisenhower telegraphed back home. And then this obviously this August, we're gonna have the 80th anniversary of Nagasaki, Hiroshima, the signing of the treaty on the deck of the battleship and all the rest in Tokyo Bay. And so it's funny though, we're all reliving this. We realize that anyone at this 80th anniversary who was age 20 at the time has to be a centenarian, right?
Yeah.
And we don't have a lot of them left. We have some. They're I don't know, they're about 400, 500,000 left, but they're departing they're shrinking at about 1/3 every year, right? So this is but this is interesting, isn't it? It
sets us up to repeat it.
Yeah.
Does this rebuilding, the sort of expyrosis, the burning through fire and rebirth where the wildflowers can bloom, does this have to be state oriented? I guess that was the point I was trying to make about institutions. I look at something like the rise of Bitcoin, just to be really specific about it, as in a way its own stateless institution. Is there a path you see forward where these aren't hard drawn lines on a map and are instead either culturally or ideologically drawn lines?
That's an interesting question. I think I must have fallen asleep by that part.
Where we build institutions across borders, or is that just pipe dream?
It's not necessarily state driven. That's not the essential part of it. Here's the essential part of it, Dave. It's community driven. It's this intense community of the whole country becomes a band of brothers. That's what the society we learned. You cannot understand the American high. You cannot understand why we were the way we were culturally, socially, the suburbs, the huge middle class, everyone wearing the same gray flannel suit. I mean, everything you remember of the late 40s, 50s, I'm saying literally remember, but our image of that period, you cannot understand it without understanding the crisis that scared the crap out of everyone that they had been through, right? Coming together was the only thing that saved them. And the generation which came of age in that what we call the greatest generation, that power of community is something they recall for the rest of their lives until the time they died, whether it was in the 1970s, 80s, 90s. Many of them were still voting for Ronald Reagan. You know what I mean? But my point is that that's what they could not stand about their boomer kids. Their boomer kids all wanted to be individuals. And they just thought, don't you realize what the only reason we were able to build all this crap for you spoiled kids is that we were together. We believed in community. We're willing to tax everyone for these interstate highways and all these sewer systems and all these public colleges, which you kids didn't pay a dime to go to. I mean, I was at California at the time. I went to UC San Diego, UC Berkeley. I think my semester tuition was something like $25. I mean, that's all I paid. I mean, that seems like a late cycle problem, because like even in the 80s, my college tuition now was like less than a car payment, you know, because we discovered markets. We thought they were beautiful. Right. So anyway,
that was a really, I loved that section, and I don't remember it from watching it the first time, but that was like, it's gonna, if the theory holds, if this fourth turning theory holds, we're about to go through something that's going to be so brutal that it's going to unite us. And that's really hard to see in our current state. And
that's what scares me. That scares me more than anything.
Yeah.
What is coming that is going to bring us all? What could possibly be coming?
Right.
To bring us all together. And
right.
Yeah. It's,
but for this theory to hold, but it could, because I mean it could be something like in the 1860s where it splits into a war before it becomes the one again. It could
aliens. It's gonna be aliens.
It could be aliens.
It could be aliens are gonna come and land, and they're gonna go, "Hey, you guys, listen. Lord is here, and he's gonna kill us all unless you say Klaatu Barada Nikto." Okay.
But yeah, like it's so hard. Even as much as I believe in this theory, it's really hard to see what it could possibly. It's hard to see something that could bring our country together as one.
Right now,
it's really hard to see it.
It is. But I will also say this: it would probably really hard to see the outcome of post World War II.
Right.
Before. How are we going to be, I'm sure they were like, oh my God, we got to, make sure the Nazis don't win.
Right.
So how are they going to be able to see the future?
Yeah.
I would say we're in just as big of a pickle.
Yeah.
We know the nice thing is though, is unlike our forebears, we're now conscious of what's happening.
Right.
We're self-aware. We know it's coming because we've read these books.
Right.
We know it's coming, it's here, whatever. What can we do?
Yeah.
To mitigate the consequences of this event,
Yeah. It's wild to think about.
It is. It's scary.
It
keeps me up at nights.
I know.
I don't drink as much as I used to, but it makes me want to drink.
Right. I smoke a lot of weed.
Same.
Never been much of a drinker, but yeah, I mean, it's a lot to think about. It's a lot for but really, like it's time. Like we're the adults, and it is.
I wish we could get back together. I don't like this. I do not like the divisiveness.
I don't either. I
think that I think a lot of it is a lot of it is due to the internet. A lot of it is because you can sit behind a screen and be faceless or whatever. There's not a lot of accountability for what things that you say or do, obviously. So.
I think that's something that Gen X is going to need to deal with as far as I don't want to say rules with the internet, because I'm a big freedom person.
No, but etiquette,
just access to how it's changing. It's changing kids' abilities to learn, to pay attention, to to be human beings. Like, how are we going to deal with how are we going to deal with the current technology and what's coming? how are we going to allow it to affect us as people in our society and how we do things? We're the last ones to remember what life was like before all of this stuff, and how people used to develop, and how people used to communicate and learn. And if we don't put some guardrails on things, I think as a culture, it's going to be bad. So I think that's one thing that our generation is primed to do, is to put those guardrails on tech and
yeah, because we don't want Skylab happening, do we? Or not?
No.
What was it? Skynet. We don't want
Skynet.
Skynet happening. I mean, I really hope that's not what it is.
Right. I mean,
apocalypse.
We're at a point now where kids aren't learning to read very well. Their abilities to communicate and think are I don't know what TikTok and AI has done to a lot of these kids, but like, it's just, I don't know. It's affecting our culture, and it's affecting us as human beings. All of this tech that we have now. And so I really feel like that's going to be, if our generation can make any mark at all in our country's history and story, that would be one thing that I would like, is for us to kind of put some guardrails on things and kind of define where we're going forward with technology. Yeah. It's like, and make sure that make sure our ancestors and our children and our grandchildren and all of that, make sure that they're able to, access human skills that they need to have, so they're not completely dependent on technology and in the state.
They're taking the phone away from a kid.
I know, and that's why I'm saying it's going to be our generation that's going to have to make. It's going to. We've got to be honest about what tech is doing to us, and how information is distributed, and all the information silos that we all live in, and all of that stuff, So, yeah, spending time with people, and absolutely. Like, just trying to create an environment that pushes us towards more time away from screens would be nice.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be really nice. Kids need to be put back to work in factories so we won't need Social Security.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Back to the days of child labor.
Yes, 100%.
Put them to work. You need to go to school. Put them to work. There's still some coal mines left.
Oh, God. All right. Well, I really enjoyed this evening, this part of the book, but moving forward, I'm looking forward to getting into each of the turnings. We're going to go through this pretty quickly, so it'll be fun. It'll be good times. Anything else anybody want to add before we go?
Little Joe was in San Diego in 1985, as was I. I was 14.
Nice. You 80s San Diego kids.
San Diego in the 80s was a great place to live and grow up, let me tell you.
I bet.
So much fun. I have so many fond memories. And
it looked pretty awesome when I was watching Top Gun.
No, that's just, yeah.
That's just a small part of it.
Very small part of it.
Yep.
Simon and Simon used to film some stuff in San Diego.
That's right. That's right. They were based in San Diego.
Well, they didn't necessarily film there. There's lots of shows that don't film where they're
sure. They'll do some occasional on location shots a couple days a year and then insert them into their the rest of it they do on the lot. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, that's right. I love Simon and Simon.
Take place in New York, and yet they were filmed right here in Burbank.
Beautiful downtown Burbank.
Shots, those were still Burbank.
All right, guys. Well, next week, real quick before we go, we are going to be reading chapters 4 and 5,
Mm.
which is Cycles of History and Gray Champions.
Great
I believe.
champion is awesome.
Yes.
Love that stuff.
And that will get us through part 1. And then the following week, we will get into the turnings. So, and each week we'll do a different turning.
Right.
So it'll be good times. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me. For those of you that don't know, I do have a Discord server, and we like to watch old movies and TV shows on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So tomorrow night I'll be watching Little House on the Prairie and Cobra Kai, and Thursday night we're watching The Incredible Hulk. We're watching it all in a row. So come hang out with me on Discord Friday night for real. I am coming back for my so-called live stream on Friday night, 7:00 Central. I don't know if we'll have a TV cart next week, Edward. I haven't decided yet. Haven't prepped yet. I'm sure I'll come up with something good.
What's the theme on Friday?
The theme on Friday is 1987 to 1992, the 5-year magic special. Yeah, we're gonna be going through all the music, movies, and TV of that fun little end of 80s or first of 90s.
I have my yearbooks.
Oh, nice.
1986, 87, and 88.
Ooh.
The year was 88.
Well, then you're gonna have to email me a photo.
I will.
Okay.
I will. I remember.
But yeah, so Friday night we'll be doing my so-called live stream, and honestly, it's possible at the rate that I'm going right now. Hold on. That during Friday's live stream, I might hit 100,000. I might hit 100,000 subscribers.
You get a plaque for that?
Yeah, I'll get a silver play button.
Nice.
Yeah. So if it doesn't happen during Friday's scheduled live stream, when I get close, I'm just gonna randomly go live for it. So yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe, share my videos. I appreciate everybody watching and hanging out.
Join membership.
Yes, get membership. I've definitely increased my membership lately. So thank you all for joining the channel, and I really appreciate it. Our monthly live stream is every month, as the first Sunday of every month. Yep. So-called live stream is back. Yay! So yes, it was. They had a studio down. They built a studio down there that's still there when they're doing all their NCIS Hawaii or whatever it is, and they had the Magnum reboot down there. So yes, I actually have a photo, believe it or not, right here when my parents were in Hawaii in 1986.
Oh wow.
So there's the man himself on set.
Woo.
Yes, so that was 86, little Thomas Magnum there.
Wow.
Thank you. Yes, it is. It must have been posted somewhere. Somebody posted it on some site, and it's definitely helping my view count. Thank you all very much. I appreciate y'all hanging out. Come hang out with me on Discord, or come back on Friday and my so-called live stream. We'll talk about the late 80s, early 90s, the special little place in time that's not like any other.
God, I cannot wait.
7:00 Central.
I will remember 5:00. Remind me, dude. Remind me Friday.
Love you, Gemini. I'm so glad you hung out tonight. Good to see you. Thank you, Little Joe, the Moonlight Cat. Thank you, Bad TZ, Cindy, Cruzea, Mark Patrick, Joseph Tricoli, Cindy. I said Edward this door. I'm sorry. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Rachel, appreciate you. All you guys in the chat, Jake. Appreciate all of the wonderful comments.
My arm is healing, but it still hurts.
Oh, yeah. Good. I'm glad you're making some progress there, even though it still hurts. Do you still have some good drugs?
No.
Oh, that's probably why it still hurts.
Yeah, I'm out. I'm starting to get worried. Yeah.
Joseph, I did not make it to the post office today. Something came up this morning, and I do apologize, but I promise before Friday, I will get it. I will have it for Friday's live stream. So I promise.
Lounge Singer just showed up and said he's late. Recap the entire stream in one sentence. Well, that's always easy. Boomer's bad.
Gen X is about to take over.
Yeah. It's our turn.
It's our turn.
We are going to kick booty.
And we're ready to be pragmatic about it. We're going to kick ass and take names.
Goodbye to Colbert. Is that tonight? Is Colbert's last one tonight?
I think it's Friday.
Oh.
Yeah, this week. I think this is his last week.
I know. I got to wait.
Yes, hit the like button.
I'm staying up till midnight tonight to watch the last episode of The Boys.
The Boys?
Yeah.
Oh, I never got into that show.
It's funny. I had the original comic books somewhere.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I don't know where, but they're probably worth a ton. But I read the whole thing and I enjoyed it, but I actually like the TV show better.
Oh, it's always fun when that happens. It's rare. It's rare
for
the adaptation to be better than any literature, but yeah.
I have a list though. That's a great topic, but I have a list of very few movies that are better than the book.
Yeah.
Godfather, definitely. MASH, the movie, is way better than the book.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park is a better movie than the book.
100%. Most of Michael Crichton's books were very well adapted for screen. Most of them, and they just took the books and just made them better for on screen. But but you're right. Yeah. I like that. That's a good topic to think about.
It is, especially if you can think about there's some Gen X movies in there too. I would also for a Gen X movie, I would say maybe Less Than Zero is definitely more interesting than the book.
Yeah,
the book is a different beast altogether, and the movie had much deeper impact.
Yeah,
than the book ever did. Even though the book 100%. Was hugely influenced.
Yeah,
I love that book and movie, but they're two different things.
Yeah.
Same thing with here's another one. Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
That's a book?
It is a book. I have a copy of it in PDF, actually, if you want it.
Really? I would love that.
Yeah. It's out of print. It has been out of print since the early 80s. Copies of it regularly now sell for $300, $400. I actually paid $100 at one point.
I had no idea.
It is not a great book. It's Cameron Crowe's first book. It's not great.
It's a Cameron Crowe book, even. Wow.
He wrote it. It's a true story.
How did that get past?
He went to Claremont High in San Diego, and he enrolled there with the principal's permission, and did undercover work for a semester in the late 70s.
How did I not know this?
Yeah, and the book was a fairly bestseller, and they adapted it. He actually got to write the screenplay for the movie. But the thing is, but as soon as the movie came out, the book went out of print and has never been back in print, ever. Huh. So, yeah, it's really hard to find. Really hard to find. But it's not good. The movie is way better.
Yeah, this is a very interesting topic.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna be thinking about it all night long.
Oh, I'll send it to you before the evening's over.
Say what?
I'll send it to you before the evening's over.
Yes, that'd be great. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.
All right. Yay. All right. Thank you all very much. I appreciate you hanging out. It was a good 3 hours. It was a good 3 hour discussion.
Video watching. Flew by.
It does. It flies by. Thanks, everyone. I will see you back here on Friday night for my so-called live stream. And next Tuesday for next week, a book club. See you guys later. Okay, bye.